Chapter 1047, Conspiracy. Chapter 1047, Conspiracy. Divine pills were quite expensive. However, there were much more level 1 and 2 alchemists than those better ones. Thus, the pills at these two levels were relatively cheaper, but from level 3 divine pills onwards, the price was exorbitant enough to crush anyone's hopes. If ordinary mountain river tier cultivators could still buy a few level 1 and 2 divine pills after saving some money, then a level 3 divine pill was definitely not something that could be obtained by just saving money for a while. The price for cheapest level 3 divine pill started at 1,000 true origin stones. If it was one of the few types that were more difficult to concoct, it was not rare for the price to start at 2,000. The Jade Heaven pill belonged to the category of level 3 divine pills that were harder to concoct, and the rate of successful concoction was low. Thus, even level 3 alchemists were not fond of concocting it. Though level 4 alchemists had this ability, what level 4 divine pill was not more expensive than this? Then, why would they waste their effort to concoct a level 3 divine pill? Thus, when Ling Han could concoct a large amount of Jade Heaven pills, he had finally opened up a path to endless wealth for himself. This caused him to consider opening up his own shop. When he sold the alchemical pills directly to the pharmacies, it was equivalent to the pharmacy taking a share of his profit even though he could quickly earn back his capital. Furthermore, this was not a small portion, either. He told Li Weiwei of his idea. However, Li Weiwei was not very keen on opening a shop, because she did not like trouble. Thus, Ling Han went to discuss this with Shui Yenyu. In the end, the Shui clan still did not recognize him. Although Ling Han did not care much for the opinion of the Shui clan, he knew that Shui Yenyu still very much desired the approval of her clan. Hence, he still had to consider them for her sake. If he could open a very profitable pharmacy, and offered it as a betrothal gift, the voice of objection from the Shui clan would definitely become much smaller one. Shui Yenyu was smart, and immediately guessed his motive. She naturally agreed gladly, and even took the initiative to kiss him to express the excitement she felt. Since Ling Han had decided so, he was going to do it. The money in his hands would allow him to do things right even in the imperial capital. What more when he now had a considerable status? Who did not know that the Ninth King was backing him? After choosing the right location, the renovation and hiring staff followed. But at this time, Ling Han encountered a problem. No one applied for a position. After expending some effort, he finally found out that the combined order from Zhao Lun and Shuo Yuan, these two young masters, banned anyone from going to his shop to work. These were the descendants of two great generals. Who would dare ignore their words? Ling Han, had indeed obtained the favor of the Ninth King, but how could the Ninth King step out to interfere just for the sake of a few shop staff members? Hence, though Ling Han raised the benefits very high, there was still no one who dared come to work. Ling Han pondered, and decided to simply advertise in the academy. This time, the conditions he laid out were much higher. If anyone worked in his shop, they would be able to get a number of divine pills every month. Level 1, 10 pills. Level 2, 5 pills. Level 3, 1 pill. With that, the applicants swarmed. They were mostly there for that level 3 divine pill. Even if there was only one every month, this thing was practically something with great demand but no supply. It had been completely monopolized by the powerful clans. They didn't even have enough to supply their own members, so how could they possibly take any out to sell off? It was not that pharmacies did not have this kind of divine pills, but there were just a pitifully few of them every month. The moment they were placed on display, they were immediately sold out. Ling Han was generous, and directly hired 10 people, dividing them into 2 shifts. In this way, the pharmacy successfully opened. Although the alchemical pills they sold were limited in variety, as there were only a pitiful 3 types, in this era, who would be afraid of not being able to sell out the alchemical pills they had in stock? Especially the Jade Heaven pill. Even if its price was tagged at 2,000 apiece, it was still fought madly over, causing Ling Han to have no choice but to change the selling method. Every day, there was a limited supply of 5, and one person could only buy 1. There was nothing else that could be done. The time to concoct alchemical pills was fixed, and he could only concoct 1 batch of Jade Heaven pills in a single day. Every batch would have 10 pills, and that would still be on condition that Ling Han was working at full effort. Practically every 2 days, he would have to concoct a batch. However, in the process of pill concoction, Ling Han also obtained some comprehension. He had the demonic power source in his body, so he did not have to worry about accumulating origin power. What he lacked was comprehension of the regulations of the heaven and earth. Alchemy was a process of comprehension. Because the raw herbs and materials had absorbed the spiritual chi from the heaven and earth to grow, in the process of alchemy, he would interweave the divine patterns in them, which was the embodiment of the regulations of heaven and earth. The more alchemical pills he concocted, the deeper became Ling Han's comprehension of the regulations of the heaven and earth. As the saying goes, all the techniques in this world share the same roots. So this is the principle. Ling Han nodded. However, alchemy would only raise one's comprehension of cultivation. As for martial arts techniques or secret techniques, they would be up to him to cultivate on his own. Thus, aside from alchemy, Ling Han placed his complete focus on cultivating the fast technique. This sword technique was created by the sword saint, who had also been known for being invincible. This was definitely the highest level secret technique in the immortal realm. Since he could cultivate it, he would naturally not waste this opportunity. Big Brother Lun, I found a death warrior. In the great General Zhao's manor, young Luodan was lying in Zhao Lun's arms. He was supplied by the Dark Knight Hall, with the cultivation level of consummate level of the Mountain River tier. But, even an elite at the consummate level of the Sun Moon tier would only think he is in the medium extreme of the Mountain River tier. Furthermore, he has also cultivated a secret technique. The moment he uses it, his battle prowess would spike up to pseudo Sun Moon tier, but he would only have an hour's life. Let him go and challenge Ling Han. After he has killed Ling Han, he would soon die as well, and would not leak any secrets. Young Luodan revealed a dangerous smile. She intended to become the young mistress of the great general's residence, so she naturally had to remove a thorn like Ling Han. Otherwise, he would not just be a humiliation of Zhao Lun, but hers as well. Zhao Lun was quiet for a moment, and then said, "Did you leave behind any loose ends?" "None. I disguised myself 3 times over to change my appearance and bearing. The people of the Dark Knight Hall could not possibly know who I am," Yong Luodan vowed solemnly. "Good, then let him go and challenge Ling Han." Zhao Lun nodded. Otherwise, it was too difficult to kill Ling Han in the imperial capital. Even the Dark Knight Hall could not find a chance to do it. However, the Dark Knight Hall asked for a price of 300,000 true origin stones, Yong Luodan said with a little hesitation. 300,000. Even a rich young master like Zhao Lun almost jumped up in shock, dumbfounded, but he immediately controlled himself, and said, "Agree to their demand." "Humph, as long as they can kill that lowly commoner, so what if I have to spend 300,000? Moreover, there will definitely be a betting pool. We will bet on Ling Han dying, and we will still be able to earn back what we spend. Big Brother Lun is really clever." Young Luodan flattered as she stretched out her hand to tease Zhao Lun. Zhao Lun instantly became H******, and pulled young Luodan over in a swift movement, quickly turning her around. He pressed down on her and began to indulge in his pleasure. After the novelty had passed, only this kind of position would be able to stir his interest. This woman, after all, was still not Shui Yenyu. Only from the back would she have a few hints of Shui Yenyu in her. From the front, there was too big a difference. Meanwhile, Yong Luodan revealed a sinister expression. How could she not know what Zhao Lun was thinking? But what Zhao Lun did not know was that when she went to the Dark Knight Hall, she deliberately disguised herself as Shui Yenyu. With how similar the two of them looked, and added with the fact that she had deliberately imitated her mannerisms, the possibility that she would be mistaken for Shui Yenyu was extremely high. When Ling Han died, if the Dark Knight Hall was found out, the crime would only be borne by Shui Yenyu's was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. She did not want to become a mere substitute. Chapter 1048, Accepting the Challenge. Chapter 1048, Accepting the Challenge. A fierce person had recently appeared in the imperial capital. His name was Wu Ziren, and his cultivation level was only at the medium extreme of the Mountain River tier. However, He had a winning streak of 19 matches at the Iron Blood Stadium, and this stunned the entire imperial capital. There was nothing special about someone winning a match at the Iron Blood Stadium. However, winning anything above 3 matches was insanely hard, as the Iron Blood Stadium would send elites to battle anyone who reached a winning streak of 3 or more matches. They would do everything in their ability to end the competitors' streaks. No one was exempt from this, not even Zhao Lun or Shuo Yuan. Neither of them had received preferential treatment when they had battled at the Iron Blood Stadium. Moreover, one was fully responsible for their own life and death once they entered the Iron Blood Stadium to battle. It was extremely normal for one to be severely wounded during battle, and it was even possible that one would be killed. Someone ferocious enough to achieve a 10-match winning streak would only appear every 1 year or so, and someone brilliant enough to achieve a 15-match winning streak would only appear once every 100 or so years. Meanwhile, someone prodigious enough to achieve a 20-match winning streak would only appear every 1,000 or so years. Thus, being able to reach a 19-match winning streak, Wu Ziren naturally caused a huge stir in the imperial capital. Moreover, Wu Ziren suddenly surprised everyone by issuing a challenge to Ling Han and inviting him to battle at the Iron Blood Stadium. He wanted to use Ling Han as a stepping stone on his way to a 20-match winning streak. The residents of the imperial capital were instantly filled with fervor and anticipation. Ling Han had also shot to fame through a single battle, back when he had insta-killed by UNC and crushed Zhao Lun when battling at the same cultivation level. It had seemed as if he was going to surpass Zhao Lun and become the strongest cultivator of the younger generation. Could Wu Ziren challenge Ling Han's lofty status? The battle had yet to begin, yet bets were already being placed. The gambling businesses had already released the odds for the two of them. As before, these odds weren't directly related to who would win or lose. Rather, these odds were related to who would win, and in how many exchanges. This was because an elite had claimed that Wu Ziren's strength was definitely no weaker than that of Ling Han. Thus, the odds for the various betting options were quite attractive. For example, the payout for Ling Han being able to defeat Wu Ziren in 10 exchanges and Wu Ziren being able to defeat Ling Han in 10 exchanges were 3 and 4, respectively. This rate was extremely high, yet it was still nowhere near the insane payout rate of 100 from before. After all, Ling Han was no longer an unknown and untested youth. Meanwhile, Wu Ziren had also displayed his overwhelming strength. Neither of them could be considered a pushover. The Iron Blood Stadium was very proactive, and they voluntarily came forward with an attractive proposition for Ling Han. They would pay him 20,000 true origin stones as long as he accepted the challenge. If he were to win, they would reward him with an additional 100,000 true origin stones. Ling Han was swayed by this rich offer. He made some calculations in his mind. Right now, he only refined 1 cauldron of Jade Heaven pills every 2 days, with cauldron yielding 10 pills and each pill selling for approximately 2,000 true origin stones. In other words, he earned around 10,000 true origin stones per day. If he accepted the challenge, just his appearance fee alone would be double what he earned per day. Moreover, there was even a chance for him to win an additional 100,000 true origin stones. I'll fight. Although it looked like he was robbing money by selling extremely expensive pills every day, he still needed to pay rent for his store, no? This was the imperial capital, after all, and each inch of land was worth its weight in gold. In addition, he had opened this store with Shui Yenyu, so he naturally needed to share the profits with her as well. The main reason for this was to show the Shui clan his capability. Furthermore, he still needed to learn the last pill recipe, the level 4 divine pill, the mysterious azure pill. This would require a huge amount of wealth, and if he didn't have a significant income each day, this would merely be an intangible dream. From this, one could imagine how very expensive it was to raise an alchemist. However, he was unfamiliar with Wu Ziren, and didn't know how strong Wu Ziren was, either. As such, he didn't know how many exchanges it would take for him to defeat Wu Ziren. With this in mind, he didn't place any bets. He was confident that he would win, yet he was unsure how many strikes he would need to defeat his opponent. Anyhow, he certainly didn't want to reveal the secret that was fast technique. He accepted the challenge. The imperial capital brimmed with fervent excitement when news of this spread. Everyone fought to buy tickets, and in the end, it became extremely difficult to obtain even one ticket. According to rumors, the Iron Blood Stadium was purposefully withholding tickets so that their price would gradually rise to an insane level. This would allow them to rake in a huge amount of wealth. To put it simply, the battle between Ling Han and Wu Ziren had already transcended the state of just being a battle. Instead, it had become a grand cultivation event in the imperial capital, one that could bring great benefits to all parties involved. Li Weiwei immediately ran to Ling Han's courtyard and asked, "Stupid blockhead, how should I bet this time?" Ling Han chuckled and said, "You've really become addicted to making huge winnings, haven't you? You already won so much last time. Haven't they blacklisted you yet? Fart. Do they dare reject my bet?" Li Weiwei said proudly. Then, she suddenly became serious again, and asked, "So, how should I bet?" "No idea." Ling Han shook his head, and continued, "I know nothing about my opponent, so how should I know?" Li Weiwei persisted, and said, "Weren't you overflowing with confidence when you claimed that you were invincible against those at the same cultivation level before?" Ling Han nodded, and said, "I'm indeed confident that I'll win this battle. However, I genuinely don't know how many exchanges my victory will take." Of course, this was under the condition that he didn't unleash the fast technique or ultimate arrow. Otherwise, he was 90% confident that he would be able to achieve victory in a single exchange. Li Weiwei shook her head, and grumbled, "Humph, how boring. There was no option of just picking a Vita this time." A thought occurred to Ling Han, and he asked, "Have you ever investigated this Wu Ziren before?" "Heh, Wu Ziren. There isn't such a person one." Li Weiwei clapped her hands together, and said, "Wait for me. I'll go investigate for you right away." "Heh, are you extremely touched by my offer? The daughter of the left minister is running around and completing errands for you." Ling Han chuckled, and said, "Of course I'm touch. I must be touch." Li Weiwei nodded in satisfaction and left. She was extremely efficient. It was probably better to say that the office of the left minister was extremely efficient, and Ling Han received the information that he wanted in 3 days. Meanwhile, there was still 1 day left until his much-anticipated battle with Wu Ziren. "Blockhead, all of the traces point to the Dark Knight Hall." Li Weiwei became serious, and continued, "There's a 70 to 80% likelihood that Wu Ziren is an assassin from the Dark Knight Hall." Heh, they're finally making a move again. Ling Han had found it strange that there had been no movement from the Dark Knight Hall even though Zhu Gaoyang and Yin Yuanxiang had already been dead for the best part of half a year. So it turned out that they had come up with a completely new plan this time. They were coming for him openly. "Blockhead, how about you pull out of this battle? I'll immediately send the necessary information to the Ministry of Justice and have them investigate this Wu Ziren." There was a hint of killing intent in Li Weiwei's eyes. Someone actually dared to scheme to kill her underling? Ling Han was slightly astonished. At this moment, Li Weiwei finally radiated with a domineering aura that members of super-elite families should all possess. He had always thought that this princess-like woman could only muck around. No. Ling Han shook his head, and said, "Firstly, I've already accepted the challenge, so there's no excuse for me to pull out of it. Secondly, I can earn 20,000 true origin stones, so why not pocket this money? Thirdly and lastly, the Dark Knight Hall is coming at me openly, so I have to accept their challenge no matter what." "Stupid blockhead. You dimwit. You old miser." Li Weiwei was extremely ticked off. In her eyes, this was a tremendously dangerous situation as their opponents had come fully prepared. Why is he taking this risk? To prove that he's a man? Li Weiwei felt a surprising lack of confidence as she stole a glance at Ling Han's profile. She was a little afraid that Ling Han would catch her sight. Ling Han smiled, and said, "Don't worry, I won't die. Since the Dark Knight Hall wants to kill me, I'll have them pay a price." It was no easy task to raise a cultivator to the Mountain River tier. The Dark Knight Hall had already lost 3, and if they lost one more, they would definitely feel extremely angry and distressed. Who told them to target me? Chapter 1049, A Tongue Like an Arrow. Chapter 1049, A Tongue Like an Arrow. 1 day passed, and the day of Ling Han and Wu Ziren's battle finally arrived. This battle was to be held in the Iron Blood Stadium, and battling in this stadium meant that one would be fully responsible for their own life and death. The competitors didn't need to have mercy in battle, for they wouldn't be liable to any consequences even if they killed their opponent. The Iron Blood Stadium was filled to the brim for this battle, with many people standing tiptoe so they could catch a glimpse of the battle. The Iron Blood Stadium didn't normally have standing tickets. However, this battle had attracted far too many people, with entrance tickets having already reached a resale value of 50 true origin stones each. Even so, countless people still fought over the tickets. Shui Yenyu accompanied Ling Han to the stadium, and she couldn't help but feel shocked when she entered the Iron Blood Stadium. Why were there so many people? She had come to the Iron Blood Stadium before, but she had never seen it packed so full that not even a single needle could be fitted in. The stadium was truly packed to the brim with people. Fortunately, the Iron Blood Stadium had sent people to wait for Ling Han as he was one of the competitors today. They immediately took him to a special passageway, allowing him and Shui Yenyu to enter stadium smoothly. There was still some time until the battle, meaning that Ling Han could still rest for a short while. Is that Wu Ziren really an assassin from the Dark Night Hall? Shui Yenyu had only just learned of this from Ling Han. Ling Han nodded, and replied, almost certainly. Shui Yenyu frowned slightly, and said, the Dark Night Hall has already sent 2 groups of assassins before this, with even Zhu Gaoyang and Yin Yuanxiang failing to kill you. Mind you, they were both at the consummate level of the Mountain River tier. Although it wasn't you who killed them, the Dark Night Hall knows nothing of this. Thus, they've definitely overestimated your battle prowess. Now that they're sending Wu Ziren to battle you, I can say with certainty that his battle prowess is definitely above that of Zhu Gaoyang and Yin Yuanxiang. Shui Yenyu's analysis made a lot of sense. Those at the Dark Night Hall were assassins, not retards. Why would they send someone weaker than Ling Han when they knew of his battle prowess already? Ling Han nodded, and said, that's why I'm curious. He's at the same cultivation level as me, so what tier battle prowess can he reach when he unleashes his full strength? You're ignoring the dangers just to satisfy your own curiosity. Shui Yenyu was about to explode in anger. Had this man ever considered her feelings when making this decision? Did he know how worried she was? Don't worry, I'll definitely be fine. Ling Han gave Shui Yenyu a light hug. In a rare turn of events, he only hugged her, and didn't perform any other indecent acts. Shui Yenyu could only sigh softly. She fixed Ling Han's collar, and said, be careful. I will. Ling Han's expression became serious, though what he said next was nowhere near serious. Go home and prepare yourself. Wait for your husband to come back home and love you. Shui Yenyu didn't scold him this time, and she simply rested in his embrace, and said, damn pervert. I know that you're very powerful and far stronger than those at the same age as you. However, the world is a big place, and anything can happen. You definitely can't become too arrogant. Millimeter Chem. Ling Han patted her slender shoulders lightly. Blockhead, it's time for you to enter the hair. Li Weiwei ran over hurriedly, yet she immediately covered her eyes with her hands upon seeing the sight before her. Aya, my eyes. What about your eyes? Ling Han said with a chuckle. He then turned to Shui Yenyu, and softly said, I'm going now. I'll wait for you, Shui Yenyu replied. Ling Han nodded, and then strode toward the arena. Li Weiwei ran over to Shui Yenyu, and whispered, Sister Shui, did you really fall for that blockhead? Although she was embarrassed, Shui Yenyu still nodded in confirmation. Li Weiwei grimaced in surprise. She had only been mucking around, yet she had somehow managed to bring Ling Han and Shui Yenyu together. She was feeling a little anxious, and asked, but he's only an emperor from a small world. Although this sounds impressive, he has no genuine background. Will your family agree to this? Shui Yenyu was also troubled by this. Ling Han was supremely talented, and was definitely going to become a supreme elite in the future. However, could the Shui clan wait that long? After all, Zhao Lun wasn't going to give up on her easily. How would the Shui clan react once he lost his patience and became hostile? We'll see how it goes, Shui Yenyu replied reluctantly. Li Weiwei pulled her up, and said, let's go. It's time to witness how that blockhead beats Wu Ziren up. The two women naturally didn't take the same path as Ling Han. Instead, they used their relationship with the left minister to enter the VIP stands of the Iron Blood Stadium. The view from this stand was extremely good, and it was one of the best locations in the entire Iron Blood Stadium. Coincidentally, there were a few other familiar faces seated in this VIP stand. Zhao Lun and Shuo Yuan. Yenyu, long time no see, Zhao Lun said. His features were still jade-like, and he still wore that charming smile on his handsome face. As he had advanced to the Sun-Moon tier, his aura had become even mightier than before, making him appear like a true god whom people could only admire and revere. Reaching the Sun-Moon tier before becoming 1,000 years old was incredibly impressive, even in the chaotic star's majestic empire. Based on currently available information, only Shu Ran from 30,000 years ago was more impressive than him. Zhao Lun had the right to be prideful and arrogant. There was a hint of disgust on Shui Yenyu's face, but she still curtsied and said, "My respects to Heir Zhao." Zhao Lun was the only child of Great General Zhao, and he had also reached the Sun-Moon tier and been bestowed a title by the Empress, with his name appearing on the Empire's totem. Thus, ordinary people all had to pay their respects when they saw him. This was a custom. However, Zhao Lun was extremely annoyed by this. The more respectful Shui Yenyu was toward him, the more she was distancing herself from him. He forcefully suppressed the emotions in his mind, and said, "Yenyu, who do you think will win today?" Before Shui Yenyu could even answer, he said, "I think Wu Ziren will win. In fact, I've even placed 100,000 true origin stones on his victory. I wagered that he can defeat Ling Han in 10 exchanges." "Oh, you're that confident, Zhao Lun?" Shuo Yuan said with a chuckle. Zhao Lun smiled proudly. He had initially wanted to bet more money, yet he was still a little tight at the hip pocket after having paid a huge sum to the Dark Knight Hall. In fact, he had actually borrowed these 100,000 true origin stones from his followers and underlings. Although he was borrowing money, it was actually closer to extortion. This made him feel slightly angry. He, the single child of Great General Zhao, actually had to stoop to the level of extorting money from his underlings? How humiliating was this? Fortunately, he had full confidence that he was going to win. As such, he would be able to repay his underlings in no time at all. Naturally, Zhao Lun replied, "Ling Han is merely an ant from a small world. What kind of powerful trump cards can he possess? He's naturally no match for Wu Ziren." The people nearby all wore strange smiles when they heard this. Li Weiwei didn't hold back, and said, "Zhao Lun, have you forgotten how you were pummeled by Ling Han half a year ago? The wounds on your face have recovered, so you've forgotten how you were beaten?" Only a few of the people present dared to ridicule Zhao Lun to his face, and Li Weiwei was one of them. Zhao Lun involuntarily clenched his fists. The veins on his forehead popped, and the aura that radiated from his body suddenly became especially turbulent, transforming into silhouettes of sabers and spears that were capable of insta-killing any being at the Mountain River tier. Yang Luodan interrupted, that was because Brother Zhao's cultivation level was suppressed. It wasn't a fair battle to begin with. We're all of the same generation, and the cultivation level of that ant is clearly insufficient." However, he insisted on suppressing Brother Zhao's cultivation level to the same lowly level as himself. How could Brother Zhao have unleashed his full battle prowess? If that ant reaches the same cultivation level as Brother Zhao, he'll definitely be no match for him. Anyhow, Brother Zhao has already reached the Sun-Moon tier, and achieving this feat before 1,000 years old is a rare feat even when looking back at the history of our majestic empire. It can be said that he's the #1 prodigy of these past 100,000 years. Chapter 1050 Sudden Elevation. Chapter 1050 Sudden Elevation. Although Yang Luodan was simply flattering Zhao Lun, most of what she said was still very true. Reaching the Sun-Moon tier at an age as young as Zhao Lun's was tremendously rare. Of course, this was in part due to Great General Zhao's sacrifice. She had even suffered severe wounds to help his son. At his cultivation level, severe wounds weren't something that could be healed after eating a few pills and resting for a few days. Rather, he needed centuries or even millennia of rest to allow his wounds to slowly recover. However, the most important factor was still Zhao Lun's prodigious talent. After all, there was still the other 6 great generals and the left and right minister, but who could raise a child as impressive as Zhao Lun? Zhao Lun instantly calmed down. That's right. My strength has always been far above Ling Han's, so why do I need to keep that in mind? There had never been any notion of fairness in the cultivation world. Strength was all that mattered. Yenyu, I'll propose our marriage to the Shui clan once this battle is over, Zhao Lun said calmly. He had already given Shui Yenyu enough freedom. Since he had already reached the Sun-Moon tier, it was high time that he took this seductive beauty as wife. Zhao, don't forget that I'm already part of the Ling family. I'll never fathom marrying a second husband, so please don't bother me anymore. Zhao Lun chuckled coldly, and said, what's the point of staying with a dead person? Ignore him. Let's go. Li Weiwei dragged Shui Yenyu to a relatively distant place to sit down. Brother Zhao, let's sit down as well. Yang Luodan also went to tug at Zhao Lun. Zhao Lun humphed and snatched his arm away, completely ignoring Yang Luodan as he sat down by himself. Jealousy creeped into Yang Luodan's heart. She knew that Zhao Lun would definitely do everything within his abilities to please her if she were Shui Yenyu. If it were her, how could he wear such a frosty expression? Yang Luodan was angry, yet she didn't let her emotions show. Once Ling Han dies, all of the clues will point toward Shui Yenyu. How is she going to escape this perilous situation? One had to remember that the 9th king had quite a close relationship with Ling Han. Thus, even the Shui clan wouldn't be able to protect Shui Yenyu. Meanwhile, Ling Han and Wu Ziren were both standing in the arena, ready to do battle. Wu Ziren looked extremely ordinary. He was around 30 years old, and was neither tall nor sturdy. His hair was disheveled, and his eyes also appeared to be a little lifeless. If the audience hadn't witnessed his might with their own eyes, who would have believed that he was a supreme prodigy who could crush those of the same generation as him? His cultivation level was only at the late stage of the medium extreme, yet he had defeated elites who were already at the peak stage of the high extreme. His battle prowess could surpass 5 stars. This was genuinely stunning. One had to realize that the battle prowess of the 7 generals and the left and right minister could only surpass 4 stars. If they wanted to surpass 5 stars, they would need to draw on the power of the nation. However, Wu Ziren could surpass 5 stars through his own power alone. Many forces had already tried to recruit him in the past few days, with the amount of attention that he drew being no lower than that of Ling Han. It was just that he hadn't expressed his own intentions the entire time. Please, you first. Ling Han gestured with his hand. A resolute expression appeared on Wu Ziren's face. He had already received an order that required him to dispose of the opponent before him in 10 exchanges. However, this meant that he also had to sacrifice his life. Please, he said in a raspy voice. Pa. The bones in his body crackled as he twisted his neck. Meanwhile, his body became significantly larger, and continued growing. Wisps of black aura surged from his body. His appearance had seemed ordinary before, yet it became especially sinister now. It was as if he had descended into a demonic Tao. Boom! His aura suddenly grew explosively. It had only been at the late stage of the medium extreme before, yet it rapidly surpassed the high extreme and consummate level. Even so, it still continued to grow ferociously. How is this possible? Isn't he at the medium extreme? How has his aura suddenly surpassed the consummate level? His aura shouldn't grow so much even if he's breaking through on the spot. Anyhow, there should appear heavenly tribulation if he was genuinely breaking through. Gasp! What kind of secret technique can allow one to grow 2 minor levels and surpass at least 9 stars? It's more than 9 stars. The might of his aura isn't as simple as the peak stage of the consummate level. In fact, it's soaring toward the pseudo-sun-moon tier. It's 10 stars, perhaps even 11 stars. Impossible. Definitely impossible. Even 5-star geniuses only exist in legends. 6-star geniuses are more so unheard of, so how can there be a 10 or even 11-star genius? 6-star geniuses do indeed exist. When this old man was still young, I once went to the 2-realm battlefield to cultivate my skills. I saw a 6-star genius there, and even heard of the existence of a 7-star genius. The reason why such geniuses don't exist here is because the cultivation level of the joint peace planet is merely capped at the heavenly body tier. No, this person is definitely not a 10-star genius. His original cultivation level is already at the peak stage of the consummate level. It's just that he used some secret technique to change his aura. Right now, he's simply using some other secret technique to forcefully raise his battle prowess. There were a dozen or so Sun-Moon tier elites seated somewhere in the stands and discussing something among themselves. One of the elders had remained silent the entire time. However, an expression of pure shock suddenly spread across his face, and he yelped, "Demonic Chi." "Elder N, what's demonic Chi?" the other Sun-Moon tier elites asked. They all seemed very respectful toward this elder. This elder's surname was An, and he was an elite at the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier. He was a top echelon elite even in the imperial capital of the majestic empire. Only a tiny number of people had a higher cultivation level or status than him: the 7 generals, the left and right minister, the 9 kings, and Empress Luanxing. Moreover, this elder An was indeed old enough as well. He had traveled far and wide when he was young, and he had even traveled beyond the joint peace planet before. His experiences were especially rich. "I'm sure you all know that there's a netherworld in addition to our immortal realm, right?" Elder An didn't answer their question, and instead asked a question back at them. The elites around him nodded. They had indeed heard that there were weak points between the 2 realms located on other planets. These weak points formed passageways, and it was in these passageways that the elites of the immortal realm and netherworld would engage in intense and bloody battles. The joint peace planet was extremely fortunate, and didn't possess any such weak point. Otherwise, how could there be conflict between the 3 majestic empires? If there were a weak point, all of their time and resources would be spent on defending against the netherworld. The wisps of black aura radiating from that person's body are none other than demonic Chi. Elder An's voice was extremely certain, and he continued, "Back when I was young, I once traveled to the 2-realm battlefield and fought against many cultivators from the netherworld. Thus, I'm especially familiar with demonic Chi." "What? That person is actually a cultivator from the netherworld?" Those around Elder An all exclaimed in surprise. This was a stunning turn of events. If a warrior from the netherworld appeared here, did that mean that the joint peace planet also had a passageway that linked the 2 realms? No, that person is most likely from the immortal realm. However, demonic Chi has been sealed into his body. Strange. When I was still at the 2-realm battlefield, I often saw people investigating demonic Chi. However, those who tried to absorb demonic Chi into their bodies would only end up dying. The regulations of the netherworld are completely different from those of the immortal realm, with each opposing the other. Trying to have them coexist is simply impossible. There was a look of surprise and confusion on Elder An's face. "Should we stop the battle?" someone asked. Another person immediately shook their head and said, "In order to achieve their so-called fairness, the Iron Blood Stadium seals the entire battlefield once the battle begins. Breaking this seal will take quite a while, even for someone at the peak stage of the Sun-Moon tier. Only great elites at the heavenly body tier can break this seal quickly. However, this was merely a battle between 2 cultivators at the Mountain River tier, so how could it attract great elites at the heavenly body tier?" "That's right." Elder An suddenly clapped his hands together and stood up, saying, "Although I don't know how he did it, I'm certain that he's taking advantage of the conflict between his body and the demonic Chi to forcefully raise his battle prowess. However, the price of doing this is definitely tremendous." Chapter 1051, The Moment of Life and Death. Chapter 1051, The Moment of Life and Death. Everyone nodded. Even though the consummate level of Mountain River tier was a mere step away from the Sun-Moon tier, this single step was incomparably far. Pseudo-Sun-Moon tier was the battle prowess that was truly incredibly close to the Sun-Moon tier, but this cultivation level only existed in theory, normally speaking. However, some elites had deduced that only a 7-star genius would be able to force their way into battle prowess on the level of Pseudo-Sun-Moon tier when they were at the peak stage of consummate level. But even a 5-star genius only existed in myths, so where would they find a 7-star genius? Thus, no matter what secret technique had been used to allow one's battle prowess to rise up to 7 stars or even more than that, the price paid would definitely be huge. It was possible that after this one burst of power, the user would directly be crippled, or even die. This is an assassination, someone realized. This is a plan to murder Ling Han in front of the public, and the price would be a cultivator at the consummate level of mountain river tier. Humph, exactly which force is behind this? The Eternity Sky Majestic Empire? Jade Drop Majestic Empire? Or the Dark Knight Hall? Aside from these 3 great forces, there would be no other force that could afford to do this. These elites immediately issued the command for the restrictions on the Iron Blood Stadium to be activated. Whether they could stop the battle or not, they could not do nothing and simply sit here to watch, right? And in another VIP seat, Zhao Lun was also passing judgment, and saying something along these lines. He was naturally not going to say that this Wu Ziren was someone he had hired from the Dark Knight Hall, yet very clearly analyzed this man's battle prowess. Pseudo-Sun Moon tier. Even he would have to exert a little bit of effort to kill a man of this caliber. Then, killing Ling Han was really too easy. It would only be a matter of 1 or 2 moves. Shui Yenyu immediately became nervous. She had been worrying all this while, and now that she knew that Wu Ziren actually possessed battle prowess on the level of Pseudo-Sun Moon tier, she finally turned ashen. Why would such an elite be called Pseudo-Sun Moon tier? With the words of Sun Moon tier, there was a massive gulf distinguishing him from the Mountain River tier. This was a gap that could crush all opposition. She kept comforting herself internally. Ling Han had fought Pseudo-Sun Moon tier puppets before, and he still had many treasures. He had so many cards under his sleeve that it had exceeded anyone's imagination. Furthermore, Ling Han's physique was also tough. Worse come to worst, he would get a few injuries, but whatever happened, he could still duck into the Black Tower, so it was impossible that he would die. As for how many troubles would be attracted by revealing the secret of a spatial god tool in public, that was something to worry about in future. He first had to survive this present calamity. Zhao Lun, meanwhile, smirked coldly. This time, Ling Han would definitely be unable to escape. Ling Han was stunned. The aura that his opponent was exuding was nothing unfamiliar to him. Demonic Qi. Demonic Qi could actually appear on a member of the human race. Could it be that he had also refined the essence of a demon master just like him? No. In terms of quality, the level of this demonic Qi was very low. He estimated it to be not that much stronger than the Azura demon emperors. His opponent's abilities suddenly rose sharply, so he must have made use of the conflict between the regulations from the 2 different realms of the Immortal Realm and the Netherworld. Fast technique only slightly damaged the regulations, and had caused such great strain on Ling Han already. Now, Wu Ziren actually allowed the regulations from the 2 realms to collide in his body and explode. Although this would bring him frightening power, the destructive ability was naturally far more than whatever boost of power he attained. After this battle, even if he did not die, he would be severely wounded, right? He's really willing to pay such an exorbitant price, Ling Han thought. At the same time, a powerful vigilance against the Dark Knight Hall rose up in him. The usage of demonic Qi could actually boost one's battle prowess to such a terrifying extent, he had to stay on guard against them, and this was only Mountain River tier. What if a Sun Moon tier cultivator also got a boost like that? Wouldn't he then be capable of matching Heavenly Body tier? If there were more of them, wouldn't they be able to gang up on and kill a Heavenly Body tier elite? Yet he was overthinking things. It was definitely not just anyone that could endure the barrage of demonic Qi, and it was not just anyone who would have that kind of resolve to sacrifice their life to have a brilliant battle. Even in the Dark Knight Hall, there was a limited number of such death warriors. Die. Wu Ziren boosted his battle prowess to its peak. Boom, his aura turned solid, and he became like a great demon god that could destroy the heavens and earth. Then he delivered an attack at Ling Han. He raised his hand, and a fist punched out towards Ling Han. One fist turned into something about the size of a house, and vacuum actually formed behind it, the space itself twisting due to the force produced as it flew forward. This was absolutely dominating power. Even Ling Han could possibly be pounded directly into mush if he took a punch head-on. Level 3 godly metal was definitely incapable of blocking the power of the Sun-Moon tier. How could it be blocked? Ling Han retreated, but this was the Iron Blood Stadium. The battleground was indeed very big, but however big it was, there was a limit to its size. Very soon, he had retreated to the wall, and Wu Ziren's punch had also arrived with all its overwhelming force. Ling Han released a soft shout, and his whole person stood on the wall. He pushed out his right hand, and extended it to its maximum, his whole person turning into a perfectly straight line. His hand, meanwhile, was gripping a brick. It was precisely the absolute beginning stone. Peng! As the punch arrived, blood sprayed out. Ling Han threw up blood. The absolute beginning stone could completely absorb any attack, but it was limited by its own size. Though he had turned his body into a straight line, trying to hide as much as he could behind the absolute beginning stone, it was still unable to completely shield his body. His right shoulder had completely been turned into mush, and he had also lost half his right foot. His left leg, meanwhile, along with his groin, was 1/3 smaller than before. However, he had survived this attack. With the channeling of a drop of indestructible true fluid, in that one instant, all the injuries on Ling Han's body recovered completely. Immediately, he had returned to prime condition. He summoned the divine sword, and used the fast technique. Wu Ziren was astonished, and hurriedly stretched out his arms to protect his chest because he saw that the light of the sword was shooting towards his heart. However, he had just barely raised his arm when he discovered he could not exert any strength no matter how hard he tried. Her had been blocked by the absolute beginning stone. And it was in that one moment that the divine sword had stabbed towards him. It was too fast. The tip of the sword entered his body, piercing his heart. Die with me! Wu Ziren's eyes were bloodshot. He suddenly opened his mouth, and spat out a sound wave. This sound wave actually turned into a few hundred black-colored swords. Demonic chi twined around them, and they shot towards Ling Han. The regulations of the two realms were different. If demonic chi entered his body, Ling Han would definitely be crushed by the Tao of heaven and earth. At such a close distance, how would Ling Han be able to dodge it? Though he tried to dodge as hard as he could, and also blocked a few black swords with the absolute beginning stone, there were really too many black swords. A few still reached him. The defense of level 3 godly metal was useless as well. The black swords damaged his defense, and pierced right into his body. Ha 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 ha, I have still completed my mission. Wu Ziren's expression was filled with madness. He was really a maniac, his heart had already been pierced, and he had still not died immediately. True, his body had been damaged by the regulations of the two realms. He was destined to die after this battle. Hence, his body had long since been damaged, so his vital points were not as vital as they should be. I have to disappoint you, Ling Han said calmly. What a joke, he had already refined the essence of a demon master, and even with that, he was unscathed. You, with that little bit of demonic chi, wanted to kill him? You were definitely thinking too much. With a light shake, the black swords shot out of his body one after another, turning into streams of black chi, and Ling Han's wounds were also rapidly healing. The blood that he had spilt was also bright red. How could this be? How could this be? Wu Ziren's expression was filled with disbelief. How could he have so easily expelled the demonic chi that had invaded his body? Are you still fucking human? He was unwilling, but his last bit of strength had gone away with that final attack. Abruptly, he crashed onto the ground, his body shattering. Due to the barrage between the power of regulations from two realms, not only did he not die with an intact corpse, he did not even manage to leave behind the slightest bit of flesh. Chapter 1052, The Empress Speaks. Chapter 1052, The Empress Speaks. The battle thus ended. In the Iron Blood Stadium, there was complete silence. It was too inconceivable. This sudden turn of events was really too dramatic, and happened too quickly. Wu Ziren was someone that possessed battle prowess on the level of pseudo-Sun Moon tier. Even if an elite in the low extreme of the Sun-Moon tier stepped up, he would still have to exert a little effort to suppress Wu Ziran. But Ling Han? His cultivation level was definitely in the late stage of the medium extreme. He had not burst out with enough power to produce a shock just now, he had merely blocked Wu Ziran's fatal strike with a very strange method. He had also struck with his sword at an inconceivably fast speed, and ended the battle. Strange, this was too strange. An elite at pseudo-Sun-Moon tier was actually killed so simply? Everyone was tweaking their ears and scratching their cheeks in frustration. No matter what, they could not accept this conclusion. They had obviously seen it with their own eyes, but none of them could accept this fact, because this far exceeded common sense. Perhaps there really was a 10-star genius in this world, but the battle prowess that Ling Han had shown previously had definitely not reached that level. Strange. This was too strange. The brick in that brat's hand. Finally, someone spotted this clue. Otherwise, in that kind of dangerous situation, what reason would Ling Han have for taking out a brick? But what kind of brick was that? It obviously did not have any divine patterns flickering on it, so it should not be a god tool, yet it was capable of dispersing the attack of a pseudo-Sun-Moon tier opponent. Ha 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 ha, the damn blockhead has indeed won. Li Weiwei laughed, clapping her hands. Shuo Yuan was also extremely shocked, and exclaimed, "This is too inconceivable. He could still win in this kind of situation? Strange, strange, this is much too strange." Meanwhile, Zhao Lun looked like he had been struck dumb. For the sake of this battle, he had spent a whole 400,000 true origin stones. Just now, he had boasted wildly, yet now reality gave him a heavy slap. Not only had Ling Han not died, he had turned the battle around and killed Wu Ziran. He lost his man, his face, and also his money. Zhao Lun, what were you saying just now? Li Weiwei giggled. She had never been a benevolent one. Since she now had the upper hand, she was naturally going to press her advantage. Zhao Lun's face was ashen. Although he was the son of a great general, 400,000 true origin stones was definitely not a paltry sum, and caused him great heartache. Now, being mocked by Li Weiwei in this manner, it could be imagined how horrible a mood he was in. "We're leaving." He felt shamed, and directly left with a flutter of his robes. Yang Luodan quickly followed suit, inwardly anxious. Zhao Lun was not in a good mood right now, so when they returned, he would definitely vent it on her. Who knew how much she would be tortured this time? This brat must definitely be gotten rid of as soon as possible. Shuo Yuan stared at Ling Han, who was standing in the stadium. His eyes were flickering with killing intent. And that stone slab. Exactly what kind of treasure is it that it can actually disperse the attack from a pseudo-Sun-Moon tier foe? After this lowly commoner is killed, aside from taking his cultivation technique, we cannot miss this stone slab, either. Only at this moment did the people in the Iron Blood Stadium finally release the restrictions, and were able to enter into the stadium. Xiao, a female guard, flew in, and stood at the top of the high flagpole in the Iron Blood Stadium, conveying an imperial decree in a dignified manner. By Her Imperial Majesty's command, Ling Han is summoned. "We shall obey your imperial decree," everyone quickly exclaimed, appearing to be incredibly reverent and fearful. Oh no, even the Empress had been disturbed. Now, no matter what secrets Ling Han had, it was of no relation to any of them. Who would dare compete with the Empress? Ling Han shook his head internally. In that situation, he only had two options. Firstly, he could hide into the Black Tower, and secondly, he could use the Absolute Beginning Stone to excuse himself. Although he did not want to reveal the Absolute Beginning Stone, in comparison, the importance of the Black Tower far exceeded the former's. Thus, he chose to use the Absolute Beginning Stone. This time, it was not the Ninth King conveying a false imperial decree. Ling Han followed that female guard into the imperial palace. After passing through multiple layers of defense, they finally arrived at the imperial garden. "Your Imperial Majesty, Ling Han has been brought." The female guard half-knelt to pay her respects. Empress Luan Xing had her back to them, her beautiful figure wrapped in a bright red cloak. Only her beautiful cloud-like hair was visible, draping over her shoulders, slightly showing her slender nape and a little of her earlobe. Yet, She was filled with an enchanting grace that could make anyone's spirit and heart drunk. Formidable and imperious, but also filled with grace and tenderness. Merely her rear view was enough to perfectly meld these two opposing sides perfectly. She was probably the only one in the world who could accomplish this. Slight confusion once again rose up in Ling Han's heart. The charm of this empress was really too much. Though he had tried his best to suppress the memory of her figure at the bottom of his heart, it was immediately incited once more with him seeing her now. Furthermore, the memory was 10 times stronger than before. After staying with her for a while longer, was there really any man in this world that could resist her charms? That stone slab, let me see it, Empress Luan Xing said. She was not at all reserved with Ling Han, and directly spoke up. She was the ruler of the chaotic star's majestic empire, and could give and take as she desired. Ling Han knew that he could not possibly resist. Hence, he took out the absolute beginning stone, and said, "This is something I obtained not too long ago when I was traveling outside. It can absorb all attacks." The female guard by his side received the stone slab from him, and took small, quick steps to Empress Luan Xing. She half knelt, while her hands held up the absolute beginning stone. Empress Luan Xing received it, and directly held her index and middle fingers together to draw a line over it. "En!" She released a surprised exclamation. Although she had not used too much power in her fingers, the attack was completely absorbed. This had far exceeded her imagination. She began to gather power, wanting to release a stronger power to test out the limits of this stone slab. Suddenly, their surroundings darkened. Only Empress Luan Xing stood proudly, releasing an overbearing presence that proclaimed her sole supremacy in this land. Too strong. She was really too strong. Ling Han did not doubt in the least that if Empress Luan Xing wanted to kill him, he would not even have the chance to duck into the Black Tower. The gap between every cultivation tier in the immortal level was really too wide. To the present him, the heavenly body tier was so far that it seemed like the horizon. However, even after she had gathered power for such an attack, it still did not produce the slightest effect when the attack landed on the absolute beginning stone. There wasn't even the smallest ripple. Ling Han thought, this is the absolute beginning stone. Only power of the Genesis tier can damage it. Heavenly body tier would really not have much use against it. Ling Han, Empress Luan Xing began, yet she paused slightly. Ling Han knew her intention. He did not have a choice, so he could only say, "I was just thinking to gift this amazing stone to you, Your Imperial Majesty. Please allow me to do so, Your Imperial Majesty." Humph. Just treat it like a betrothal gift. When they got married in future, they would have fun every day in return. This thought passed in his mind, and Ling Han couldn't help but feel stunned. Unconsciously, he had again been captivated by the charm of this Empress Luan Xing. Subconsciously, he had thought of taking her as one of his wives, but in truth, he had not even seen the real face of Empress Luan Xing. This was too scary. How could there be such a seductive beauty? Shui Yenyu appeared to be graceful and elegant, but compared to her, they were completely of two different worlds. Empress Luan Xing was very pleased. She was an overlord of this era, so how could she possibly open her mouth to ask for something from her subject? After some thought, she said, "Your cultivation level has progressed rapidly. In the future, you could become a pillar of support for our empire, so I shall bestow on you the title of a 9th-rank military officer. You'll also receive a salary from the empire." Wang. Above the imperial capital, a change immediately took place on that totem, releasing a pillar of light that showed towards Ling Han. Moreover, Ling Han's name was added to the totem, releasing a brilliant light. Was this compensation? Ling Han sighed internally. There was nothing to be done. Since the Empress had that intention, he could not refuse. However, it was not bad that he got an official rank out of the deal. From this moment on, he could draw on power of the nation to cultivate and boost his battle prowess. More importantly, now that he had an official rank, he was no longer a hostage. It meant that he was finally a free man. Chapter 1053, Having an Official Rank. Chapter 1053, Having an Official Rank. After being bestowed with his title, Ling Han was led out of the imperial palace by the female guard. Empress Luan Xing was very much interested in the absolute beginning stone, and wanted to study it properly. Ling Han returned to the academy. Immediately, a group of people surrounded him, pulling him out for drinks. Too astonishing. He had killed his opponent who had battle prowess of pseudo-sun moon tier. What kind of miracle was that? What? You have even now been bestowed the title of a 9th rank military general by Her Imperial Majesty. When they heard Ling Han reveal this, everyone was extremely stunned. Even though Li Weiwei, Ji Yuna, Lin Yu, and the others were descendants of nobles, they had not been bestowed any titles. In theory, they had the same status as commoners. Of course, this was only in theory. No one would really treat them as if they were actual commoners. In the Empire, official ranks were an extremely valuable resource because one could use the power of the nation to speed up their cultivation rate after receiving one. Furthermore, as long as they were in the Chaotic Star's majestic empire, they would be able to use power of the nation to boost their battle prowess. Additionally, with an official rank, they represented the dignity of the empire, and no one would be allowed to humiliate them. Even if people like the Left Minister or the 7 generals wanted to deal with Ling Han, they would have to first mobilize the Ministry of Justice to investigate if Ling Han had indeed done something that was against the laws of the empire. Only then could they apprehend him. Otherwise, they would be challenging the authority of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire, and would result in a punitive expedition from the great armies of the empire. This time, no one will dare make trouble for you. Lin Yu laughed loudly. Patting Ling Han's shoulder, he said, I truly envy you, being bestowed with an official rank of the empire so quickly. Normally, if you want to obtain the title of a 9th rank military general, you would have to kill at least more than 10,000 enemies. Ling Han was surprised, and asked, is it really so difficult? What do you think? Even Li Weiwei was slightly jealous. Even my father is only at 1st rank. Are you sure you are not flaunting your father? Ling Han asked, laughing. However, the rank of military officer cannot be inherited. Otherwise, it would be even more valuable, Ji Yuna said. Ling Han nodded. Now, on the surface, he had really gotten a protective talisman. The official ranks of the empire only differed by being either low or high. They were all subjects of the empress, and no one could use the authority in their hands in a conflict with another. Even if Ling Han now met with the Left Minister or the 7 generals, he would only need to pay his respects as a lower-ranking officer, and needed not be reverent in their presence. It was harder to say when it came to those below the surface. At least, forces like the Dark Knight Hall had never recognized the authority of the 3 great majestic empires. As long as you could pay the right price, they would send someone out to dispatch your target. They could wait 10 years, 20 years, or even 100 years. After all, to immortals, their lifespan began from 100,000 years onwards, so wouldn't their waiting for 10 to 100 years be similar to an ordinary person waiting for a few months? They all drank too much. Shui Yenyu was especially happy. Now that Ling Han had been bestowed an official rank, the possibility that the Shui clan would recognize their marriage was now much higher. After they had had their fill of food and wine, they all dispersed. Ling Han had created a plan. Since he now had an official rank, and had now got rid of the awkwardness of being a hostage, he could now freely enter or exit anywhere with no need to first make a report. It was time for him to make a trip home to the Great Ling Empire. He would bring great amounts of resources back, and fully raise the abilities of his 3 elder brothers. Additionally, he should also have his 3 brothers come out and travel around, going to various places and learning from experience. Real elites were produced with true battles, and definitely not just friendly sparing. There was also that disciple of his. He also had to properly teach him for a bit to do his duty as master. He continued planning. Because only a year had passed, Feng Po Yun and the others would definitely not have broken through to immortal level yet. Hence, the resources he had to prepare were all below immortal level. In the immortal realm, these were really too common, and would not cost much money. Half a month later, he would return to the Great Ling Empire. In any case, he had the cloud-piercing shuttle, so the journey would only take a few days. The night passed. When Ling Han woke, he had a headache. Yesterday, Lin Yu, Ma Xing, and the others had forced him to drink a huge barrel of wine. Now, he was having a hangover, and experiencing a terrible headache. Peng, peng, peng. Pounding was heard from the front doors. As Ling Han went to open the doors, he cradled his head, and said, "Coming, I'm coming. You don't have to pound on the doors so loudly so early in the morning, right?" Creak, the doors were opened. At the entrance, there presently stood a beauty. Her beauty was not the slightest bit inferior to Li Weiwei's and Ji Eunice. It was precisely Jiyu Lingyu, who shared the title of one of the three great beauties of the imperial capital, with them. "Why did you wake up so late?" This beauty's expression was filled with reproach. "Let's go." "Go where?" Ling Han asked. This woman was a little overly familiar. In other words, she was ignorant of worldly matters. Her head was only filled with what she wanted to do, not caring the slightest about whether this matter would be reasonable or not to others. "My master wants to meet you." Jiyu Lingyu pulled Ling Han along and immediately set off. "Your master?" En. Jiyu Lingyu nodded. Ling Han felt like he was about to go crazy. When he said that, what he meant was "Who is your master?" But Jiyu Lingyu completely did not manage to catch the underlying meaning of his words. Her brain really couldn't turn around in the slightest, could it? He could only ask, "Who is your master?" Only now did Jiyu Lingyu reply, "The deputy head of the Alchemy Institution, Yang Xiaoxian." "Quickly, quickly, don't make my master wait too long." She was practically dragging Ling Han along, without caring whether Ling Han was willing to go or not. Ling Han recalled that she had once helped him out before, so he decided to give her some face. He did not resist, and allowed her to pull him along. They walked here and there in the academy, and finally arrived at a place. It was not very big, but from afar, a strange smell could be smelt from it. The aroma of herbs. Ling Han immediately recognized the smell. Any alchemist would be very familiar with this kind of smell, and he couldn't help but sniff a few times. Instinctively, he began to deduce what medicinal ingredients were contained in this smell. Jiyu Lingyu brought Ling Han to stand in front of a courtyard. They had not pushed the doors open yet when they saw the courtyard doors open with a creak. A young man walked out, wearing long snow-white robes. This man was extremely handsome, and wearing his completely white robes, he seemed removed from worldly affairs. He was so spotlessly clean it was a little too much. It should be known that since this was the Alchemy Institution, then they were naturally all alchemists here. Alchemists dealt with medicinal ingredients and furnace fire all day, so how could they possibly be so clean? "Junior sister Jiyu." When this white-robed young man saw Jiyu Lingyu, his eyes immediately lit up. But when he spotted that she was towing Ling Han over, a hint of displeasure immediately appeared in his expression. He asked darkly, "Junior sister, what are you tugging him around for?" "Oh, under the command of my master, I have brought him here," Jiyu Lingyu said indifferently, obviously not at all aware of his feelings. "Master wants to meet this brat." The white-robed young man showed an expression of disdain. Their master was the deputy head of the Alchemy Institution, a great 7th-tier alchemist. How esteemed was his position? Even if a great many elites of Sun Moon tier wanted to meet master, it would have to depend on master's mood at the moment. "He is Ling Han," Jiyu Lingyu exclaimed. "Oh, so you are Ling Han. Hehe, you have been quite popular recently, haven't you?" A hint of dawning realization appeared on the white-robed man's face, but the expression on his face became even more unfriendly. Ling Han turned to ask Jiyu Lingyu, "Who is he?" "An idiot. He is my senior brother, Ju Wuqi. He is not an idiot, but rather a genius." Jiyu Lingyu had obviously not heard the mockery in Ling Han's words, and was still explaining to him very seriously. Yet Ju Wuqi flew into a rage. "Be bastard." Chapter 1054, Conceited. Chapter 1054, Conceited. Ling Han didn't take him to heart. It was this person who had acted hostile and spoken in provocation first. As such, what did it matter if he taunted him back? He had an official rank now, so as long as he didn't do anything treasonous, even powerful figures like the 7 generals and the left and right minister couldn't target him openly. This being the case, Why would he still need to tolerate this stupid retard? Zhu Wuqi didn't relent, and even raised his finger to point at Ling Han. Brat, what are you trying to say? Ling Han shook his head, and said, pointing at others is very disrespectful, do you understand? Zhu Wuqi was infuriated. You fucking called me an idiot, yet you still have the face to label me as disrespectful. He humphed, and said, don't think that you can act all arrogant just because you've become a little famous recently. Don't forget that this is the imperial capital. We live right under the empress throne where there are countless prodigies and supreme elites. Ling Han laughed loudly, and said, is that so? Then are you a prodigy, or are you a supreme elite? Humph. I'm only 30,000 years old, yet I'm already a level 2 alchemist. Moreover, I'll be able to become a level 3 alchemist in no time at all. Zhu Wuqi wore a proud expression as he spoke. Is this person a stupid pig? Ling Han couldn't help but feel puzzled. He had started from scratch, but could already refine level 3 divine pills now. Although he could only refine one type, one's alchemy level was simply based on the highest level pill one could refine. This was a publicly recognized system. This person is still a level 2 alchemist even though he's already practiced alchemy for 30,000 years. And he still needs some time to reach level 3? How can he be considered a genius? But he doesn't look like a dumb C***nt. So, it turns out that my talent in alchemy is actually this amazing? Ling Han could only conclude that his talent was too impressive. A smug smile appeared on Zhu Wuqi's face as he thought that it was him who had caused Ling Han to become speechless. In the alchemy world on the Joint Peace Planet, those who became level 1 alchemists before turning 3,000 years old and those who became level 2 alchemists before being 10,000 years old could all be considered geniuses. Meanwhile, Zhu Wuqi was about to become a level 3 alchemist, and doing so at the age of only 30,000 years was even more stunning than the previous 2 feats. In addition, his talent in cultivation was also outstanding. Had already reached the high extreme of the mountain river tier. These were the foundations of his pride and arrogance. Zhu Wuqi humphed, and said, so, don't think that you can act all high and mighty just because you've achieved a small feat compared to me, you're absolutely nothing. Ling Han finally came to a realization. This person was the type who was extremely conceited and narrow-minded, and couldn't tolerate anyone being more talented than them. He shook his head, not wanting to speak any more nonsense with this sort of person. He turned to Jiyu Lingyu, and said, let's not make your master wait for too long. Millimeter. Jiyu Lingyu nodded, and they immediately left. Zhu Wuqi almost collapsed in anger. Why are both of these people looking down on me? He hurriedly caught up to them, and said, brat, you're only at the medium extreme of the mountain river tier. You should know how expensive and scarce alchemical pills are, right? However, if you can become my friend, you'll never need to worry about obtaining alchemical pills in the future. Ling Han chuckled in his mind, and said, then how can I become your friend? Here. Zhu Wuqi instantly started laughing, thinking that Ling Han had finally bowed down to him. It's easy. Just call me Big Brother in the future. Also, junior sister Jiyu is mine, so don't even think about trying to get together with her. He lowered his voice on his last sentence so that only Ling Han could hear him. What a narrow-minded person. He can't bear seeing others more talented and impressive than him. Ling Han chuckled, and said, someone who's truly talented doesn't need to boast to others. You're far from being talented, so stop embarrassing yourself before others. Also, I don't think that you're worthy of Lady Jiyu. Damn it. Zhu Wuqi's embarrassment turned into anger, and he said, brat, don't be too full of yourself. You've successfully angered me, so I can guarantee that no pharmacy in the imperial capital will sell you any alchemical pills. Not even a single pill. Ling Han's expression became quite strange. Zhu Wuqi was still completely unaware that he had opened his own pharmacy. Oh, Zhu Wuqi isn't wrong, either. It's my own pharmacy anyway, so that doesn't count as selling. Heh, I'm so terrified. Ling Han said with a smile. Although Zhu Wuqi was conceited, he could still read others' expressions just fine. He knew that Ling Han was teasing him, and his expression became even darker. Humph. This brat will understand how extremely stupid it is to offend an alchemist when he walks around with true origin stones yet fails to buy any alchemical pill. He decided to follow Ling Han and Jiyu Lingyu, a cold smirk on his face. Jiyu Lingyu was an absolute idiot when it came to worldly matters, and she still hadn't realized that Ling Han and Zhu Wuqi were already completely at odds with each other. She continued to lead the way, and it wasn't long before they arrived in a small garden. "Master," she called respectfully. She had said master and not teacher. These were two completely different concepts. However, Ling Han was a little stumped. Where's her master? The garden wasn't big, and he could see everything at a glance. However, he couldn't see a fourth person anywhere. A delicate shout traveled over. "Kid, where are you looking?" Ling Han lowered his head, only to see a woman sitting cross-legged on the petal of a flower. How large was the petal of a flower? She was as small as a thumb, with her body only being an inch or so tall. Strangely, there was also a pair of extremely thin wings on her back. They were almost transparent, yet they were still adorned with golden thread-like patterns that were incredibly thin. Is this Yang Xiaoxian, Jiyu Lingyu's master and the deputy head of the Alchemy Institution? Ling Han could barely believe his eyes. "Senior, are you? What? Are you looking down on me because of my small stature?" Yang Xiaoxian was displeased, and she instantly unleashed an aura that was unique to elites. She was definitely at the Sun-Moon tier, though it was impossible for Ling Han to judge her exact cultivation as she hadn't summoned her sun or moon. "No, I would never dare to," Ling Han replied hurriedly. "I'm just a bit surprised." He spoke exactly what he thought. It was best to remain honest before such elites. Sure enough, Yang Xiaoxian laughed heartily, and said, "I'm half human and half dream spirit tribe." Half humans were the offspring between humans and demonic beasts who could shapeshift. They possessed characteristics of both humans and demonic beasts, and they would also inherit the bloodline of both of their parents. Generally speaking, they were more adaptable than their parents. Ling Han bowed, and said, "Ling Han pays his respects to Senior Yang." This was an act of respect toward elites. Yang Xiaoxian accepted his greeting, then raised her hand, and said, "No need for the formalities. I called you over to ask whether you want to join our alchemy institution or not." Pu. Zhu Wuqi instantly choked and spluttered. What on earth is happening? If the alchemy institution wanted to recruit people, they could simply make an announcement in the imperial capital. People would definitely apply in droves. Alchemy was a transcendent occupation, and the status of an alchemist was a level above that of cultivators at the same level. This was a publicly acknowledged fact. It was because of this that Zhu Wuqi acted so conceited and felt so good about himself. But what now? Yang Xiaoxian had actually called Ling Han over and personally asked him whether he wanted to join the alchemy institution. This naturally scared Zhu Wuqi to death. The alchemy institution was extremely strict when it came to recruiting students. In fact, it was tens or even hundreds of times more strict than the four major institutions. The four major institutions could recruit several hundred students every 20 years, but what about the alchemy institution? It would be considered decent if they could recruit one student every 100 years. This was because students recruited into the alchemy institution would generally form traditional master and disciple relationships. Thus, the alchemy grandmasters would all be extremely careful when selecting students. They would rather have fewer disciples than have untalented or immoral disciples. Since when had the alchemy institution become this unreserved? Chapter 1055, Heavy Blow. Chapter 1055, Heavy Blow. Ling Han pondered for a moment, and said, "I'm simply a little interested in alchemy. However, I still want to place my primary focus on cultivation." This was a polite refusal. Pu. Zhu Wuqi's eyes almost popped out in astonishment. The deputy head of the alchemy institution personally invited you, yet you actually rejected her offer? Do you know how lofty the status of alchemy institution disciples is? Even cultivators of an equivalent tier have to show them utmost respect. In fact, even cultivators of a higher tier have to be polite before them. They're pretty much a rank above everyone. How impressive and mighty is this? Do you know how hard it is for cultivators to advance a minor level? It takes tens of thousands years even in the mountain river tier. In fact, many people can't advance any further after reaching the cultivation level of the low extreme, medium extreme, or high extreme. This being the case, how incredibly precious is the fact that alchemists are a level above cultivators of an equivalent rank. Yet you actually rejected her offer. Are you stupid, or are you retarded? Meanwhile, Yang Xiaoxian laughed heartily, and said, "The pharmacy to the east of the imperial city is owned by you, am I correct?" Ling Han's heart jolted. However, this was no secret, and Yang Xiaoxian would naturally investigate him since she wanted to take him in as her disciple. Ling Han nodded, and answered, "Yes." An awkward expression instantly appeared on Zhu Wuqi's face. Just then, he had still said that no pharmacy would sell pills to Ling Han if he were to give the word. Who knew that Ling Han had his own pharmacy? It was as if he had been smacked across the face. Yang Xiaoxian continued, "I've heard that your pharmacy only sells 3 types of pills." Zhu Wuqi almost burst into laughter. "You can only refine 3 types of pills, yet you still have the face to open a store? Aren't you afraid of causing others to laugh to death?" He instantly regained his confidence, an air of arrogance reappearing on his face. Ling Han chuckled, and said, "Correct. Are these 3 types of pills all refined by you?" Yang Xiaoxian asked. Her eyes suddenly became piercing, and they exuded a hint of a domineering aura unique to Sun-Moon tier elites. Ling Han's divine sense had always been resilient and powerful. Now that he had absorbed the essence of a demon master, almost no one could suppress him through his divine sense unless his opponent was a supreme elite at the Genesis tier. He thought for a moment, and replied, "My talents are thin and my skills are shallow, so I've only been able to learn these 3 pill recipes." Zhu Wuqi's feeling of superiority became even more intense. Ling Han had only learnt 3 pill recipes, while he had learnt 176 level 1 pill recipes and 74 level 2 pill recipes. It was precisely because he had refined a large number and a wide variety of pills that he had accumulated enough experience and tempered his divine sense enough. As such, he had finally reached a state where he could see the door to becoming a level 3 alchemist. This was what he was most proud of. Yang Xiaoxian smiled as she clicked her tongue, and said, "The 3 pills are the Heavenly Qi pill, the Heavenly Pearl pill, and the Jade Heaven pill. Ling Han, you started from 0 yet were able to become a level 3 alchemist in the short span of 1 year. If such a feat is merely the result of your interest, I can't begin to fathom what kind of results you can achieve if you were to focus all of your attention on alchemy." Pa. Zhu Wuqi instantly stumbled back and sat on the ground, his face twitching and his expression as pale as dying embers. He had genuinely suffered a heavy blow. This brat can actually refine level 3 divine pills? Even if he can only refine 1 type, he's still a level 3 alchemist. Yet he had still been glorifying himself before Ling Han. How laughable. How embarrassing. Ling Han had probably been laughing on the inside when he had boasted about becoming a level 3 alchemist soon, right? Damn it. Fucking damn it. Hatred welled up in his heart. Someone like him would never seek to reflect on themselves. It was clearly him who had provoked Ling Han first, yet now that he had been humiliated, he piled all of the blame onto Ling Han. Yang Xiaoxian glanced at her disciple in slight displeasure. How can one become so emotional over such trifles and show all of their emotions on their face? How can one reach the summit of alchemy with such an attitude and mentality? Having a heart like a capering monkey and a mind like a galloping horse were great taboos of alchemy. Such capriciousness couldn't be tolerated. Ling Han clasped his hands and politely refused again, saying, "Senior, to tell you the truth, I'm more interested in cultivation even though I do hold a strong interest in alchemy." This was a world of cultivation, after all. Even though alchemists were esteemed and revered, this kind of lofty status was given by none other than cultivators. This signified that cultivators could confiscate their status at any time. Yang Xiaoxian also smiled, and said, "Don't worry. You won't be refining pills all day long even if you do join the alchemy institution. A prodigy like you who was able to become a level 3 alchemist in merely a year can probably become a level 4 or level 5 alchemist with no problem at all. However, Ling Han knew that he could only refine a level 3 divine pill so soon because the resilience and strength of his divine sense was far beyond that of ordinary cultivators at the medium extreme. Otherwise, how could it have been so easy to refine a level 3 divine pill, which was equivalent to the rank of the high extreme? Moreover, he didn't need to worry about controlling the cauldron fire in the Black Tower, which made refining level 3 divine pills even easier. Although he was confident that he could refine the Jade Heaven pill even if he were placed in the outside world, he definitely wouldn't be able to obtain a perfect 10 pills with each cauldron that he refined. The strength of his divine sense could only sustain him in refining level 4 divine pills. If he wanted to refine level 5 divine pills, his cultivation level would have to reach the high extreme of the Mountain River tier at minimum. If you join the Alchemy Institution, you'll be able to access all of the pill recipes kept by the Alchemy Institution. Yang Xiaoxian made an irrefutable offer upon seeing that Ling Han was still hesitant. Ling Han was instantly moved. Pill recipes were extremely precious, and like secret techniques, they remained concealed and were kept secret by those who owned them. Even money couldn't necessarily buy them. Yet right now, the Alchemy Institution was actually willing to give him free access to their pill recipes. Moreover, there's no need for you to forfeit your identity of a student of the Northern Institution. You can simply practice both cultivation and alchemy. Yang Xiaoxian opened a back door for him, and asked, "What do you say?" Seeing the deputy head's sincerity, Ling Han nodded, and said, "I'm willing to listen to Senior's arrangement." Brilliant, brilliant. Yang Xiaoxian was also extremely happy. He was a prodigy, a genuine prodigy. It was the Alchemy Institution's fortune to recruit him. Perhaps a giant of alchemy who could influence the entire alchemy world would one day walk out from this Alchemy Institution. Now that Yang Xiaoxian had spoken, there was no doubt that Ling Han would be able to enter the Alchemy Institution. He didn't need worry about it, as there would naturally be someone to take care of the process. In reality, alchemists didn't refine pills all day long. They also needed to cultivate. There was no way around this. How could one control their cauldron fire or extract and intertwine the divine patterns from ingredients without a sufficient cultivation level? Thus, Ling Han's being both a cultivator and an alchemist at the same time wasn't rare, nor would anyone denounce him because of this. Anyhow, the deputy head of the Alchemy Institution was personally taking him in as her disciple, so who would dare to? Would they not be afraid of having no pills to eat for the rest of their lives? After only 3 days, Ling Han was bestowed 3 pill recipes by Yang Xiaoxian, all of them for level 3 divine pills. In the future, Ling Han would receive more and higher-ranked pill recipes the stronger his alchemy ability became. Ling Han put the 3 pill recipes aside for the moment. Right now, his focus was to refine the mysterious Azure pill, a pill that could be taken by cultivators at the consummate level of the Mountain River tier. This pill could instantly replenish a large amount of one's origin power, and it could be said that it was one of the most useful pills. Blockhead! Blockhead! Li Weiwei rushed over to disturb him and shatter his peaceful cultivation. There's bad news. Your little comrades have been beaten. Chapter 1056, Coming of War. Chapter 1056, Coming of War. What little comrades? Ling Han was at a loss. Like Lin Yu, Ma Xing, Li Weiwei counted on her fingers. Of those who entered into the Shattering Void tier division with you, all men were collectively challenged yesterday, and are all now black and blue. What is going on? Ling Han's expression darkened. Li Weiwei nodded, and replied, I am guessing this was done by Shuo Yuan, because the fathers and grandfathers of these students are all the subordinates of the great General Shuo. Can't you speak more clearly? Ling Han sighed. Why are you so stupid? Li Weiwei uttered in irritation. It means Shuo Yuan sent his subordinates where Lin Yu and the others were staying yesterday, and forced them to spar. They are all members of the Shattering Void tier division, so no one can stop it. Those subordinates of Shuo Yuan had entered the Shattering Void tier division quite a number of years ago, and are much stronger than Lin Yu and the others. Naturally, Lin Yu and the others were all beaten black and blue. Ling Han rubbed his chin. Was this move of Shuo Yuan a show of force intended for him? He had sent Liu Ying and the other guards to assassinate him, which resulted in failure. Now, he did not dare make a move on him in public, so he vented his anger on Lin Yu and the others. There's nothing that could be done. Who asked you to already be in the medium extreme? So, you can't possibly seek those people out for revenge. Li Weiwei sighed. In the Scarlet Heaven Academy, students in the same division could freely spar with each other. As long as no crippling injuries or fatalities occurred, the academy would not pursue their responsibility. However, higher-level disciples could not make a move on lower-level disciples unless it was the latter who provoked them first. Thus, Ling Han could only watch helplessly. Not necessarily. He smiled and said, there should also be Shuo Yuan's subordinates in the medium extreme division, right? Li Weiwei was instantly excited, and asked, you want to thrash those people? Ling Han replied, since it was Shuo Yuan who first did not follow the rules, and expanded the flames of conflict onto innocence, why should I care? All right, I will prepare the name list for you. Li Weiwei was the type to wish for the whole world to be in chaos, so she was naturally very cooperative. Immediately, she ran off to compile the list. In this aspect, her efficiency was really very high. In a mere day's time, she had already collected all the names of Shuo Yuan's subordinates. Ling Han held the name list, and began to continuously issue challenges in the medium extreme division. Not only in the Northern Institution, but also in the other 3 institutions. He now had the cultivation level of the late stage of the medium extreme, and his normal battle prowess directly soared to the peak stage of high extreme. If he used the fast technique and the annihilating dragon star arrow, his battle prowess would be boosted by another star. This was naturally enough to sweep all contenders aside. Even the academy was alarmed, and issued a strict order, banning Ling Han and Shuo Yuan from involving other students in their personal conflict. Only then was the situation contained. Shuo Yuan, Zhao Lun. Ling Han swore that when he possessed enough strength, he would definitely slay these 2 people. Ling Han was now earnestly preparing to return to the Great Ling Empire. After leaving for more than a year, he, too, missed his 3 elder brothers. He would bring the cultivation resources back and boost the overall strength of the Great Ling Empire. However, right at this moment, a big piece of news exploded. A war had begun between the Golden Lion Nation and Eastern Rain Nation. Golden Lion Nation was a vassal state of the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire, whereas the Eastern Rain Nation was a vassal state of the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire. The 2 nations bordered each other, and could be considered the buffer area between the 2 great majestic empires, having great strategic significance. Thus, the 2 majestic empires placed high importance on these 2 small nations. Now, a war had erupted between the 2. Furthermore, 14 cities of the Eastern Rain Nation had been lost to the other side in a single night, with close to a quarter of its territory occupied, so it was forced to ask for help from the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire. Empress Luan Xing immediately issued an imperial decree. The 9th king would lead an army comprised of the students of the Scarlet Heaven Academy to assist. Why was it the students of the Scarlet Heaven Academy? Firstly, though these students were geniuses, they had not gone to the battlefield before, and were thus incredibly fragile, but what the Empire needed were soldiers that could fight a hard battle. Hence, they could take this chance to train them well. Secondly, the students of the Scarlet Heaven Academy were only in the consummate level of the Mountain River tier at most. Even if they joined the battlefield, it would not make the conflict escalate. Otherwise, if they invested forces that were too powerful, it might induce an all-out conflict between the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire and the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire. Thirdly, since the disciples of the Academy were geniuses, their battle prowess was naturally not weak. This was a troop that could not be underestimated. Since the Empress had issued an imperial decree, it was natural that no one would dare disobey. All of a sudden, the whole Academy was mobilized. Aside from the Shattering Void Tier Division and the Alchemy Institution that did not need to participate in the battle, the other students were all registered to join the battle. Though war was cruel, it was also a means to quickly boost their status. The empire had a law proclaiming that anyone that could kill 10,000 enemies would be bestowed with the title of a 9th-rank military general. One who did not want to excel. All the young people prepared for war. In their eyes, they were all geniuses, so wasn't it a piece of cake for them to join a battle and kill enemies? None of them had considered the possibility that they could die in battle, and were all incredibly optimistic. Ling Han, though, had fought his way all the way from a small world, and deeply knew the cruelty of war. There would be no one to fight you in a one-on-one battle. On the battlefield, arrows and blades would be dancing madly. In a moment of carelessness, they would be hit. Against 10,000 enemies, they could possibly die in an unfathomable manner. What he did not understand was, why would Empress Luan Xing send the 9th king to lead the troops? It was not that he was looking down on Hu Feiyun, but this woman completely did not know how to fight a war. Her own battle prowess was also worrying, so allowing her to lead the troops wasn't really a joke, was it? But who could change the mind of the empress? After 3 days' preparation, the army set out. Young Master Ling Han, the 9th king seeks your presence. They had just exited the city gates when a female guard ran over to look for Ling Han. She brought him to the central area of the army, where a luxurious carriage was. This was the private vehicle of the 9th king. It was as big as a mobile courtyard, fully exhibiting the lavish extravagance of the imperial clan. In front of everyone's envious eyes, Ling Han entered into the carriage. He looked, and hey, not only was Hu Feiyun here, even Shui Yenyu was present. Ling Han, it's been a long time. Hu Feiyun greeted him warmly. After I returned, I was forced into seclusion by Big Sister. I just came out of seclusion a few days ago, and Big Sister has sent me to war. Thankfully, you guys will be there beside me. Shui Yenyu was currently sipping tea, and tossed a strange look at Ling Han. Her underlying message was, you damn pervert, you have again hooked another girl. Ling Han bemoaned how wronged he was internally. He did not have the slightest interest in Hu Feiyun. Furthermore, this 9th king was a bit ignorant, so she probably did not know what love was. She had only been too lonely all this while, so she wanted someone to accompany her to talk and chat. He took one look at Hu Feiyun, and couldn't help but look stunned. High extreme. This girl actually advanced into the high extreme of Mountain River tier, a minor level higher than even him. Hiss, what divine pill have you taken that the rate of your advancement is so fast? It had to be known that Ling Han had harmonized with the essence of a demon master, so his was cultivation level rapidly increasing at all times, and had cultivated the universal 8 desolation technique. But even so, he had only been able to advance a sub-minor level after a few months. How could Hu Feiyun have such exaggerated improvement? First, it was Zhao Lun, and now, there was Hu Feiyun. Indeed, it seemed that elites of heavenly body tier had astounding means, and could so rapidly boost the cultivation level of a cultivator. Chapter 1057, Confronting a Furious River. Chapter 1057, Confronting a Furious River. Hu Feiyun chattered on. She was just like before, not the least bit subtle, but rather naive and innocent. She could not keep any secrets at all. As long as she thought you were a good person, she would want nothing more than to share her heart and soul with you in a few words, without holding anything back. However, most likely because she knew of this shortcoming in the 9th king's personality, Empress Luan Xing did not allow her to know any classified information, so even if anyone asked, she would not be able to reveal any secrets. Ling Han had asked in a roundabout manner about the origins of the other 8 kings before, but Hu Feiyun was at a loss. She only knew that the 9 of them were as close as sisters with Empress Luan Xing. As for the reason for that, she did not have the slightest idea. The 9 kings all had different origins and surnames, and looked completely different. They merely shared one similarity, and that was that they all did not have parents, and seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. All of a sudden, they were bestowed with the title of king, after which their cultivation level would spike, and they eventually became the foundation stones of the empire. Hu Feiyun did not even remember the matters of her past. She only knew that for as long as she could remember, she had been with Empress Luan Xing. She did not know who her parents were, what was the inheritance of her clan, and was not curious about it at all. Hearing this, Ling Han's and Shui Yenyu's heart pounded madly. Thankfully, there were no female guards in the carriage. Otherwise, if they had related these words to Empress Luan Xing, who knew if both of them might be killed to keep the secret. Though they did not manage to find out any useful information, just the origin of the 9 kings was overly mysterious. That, by itself, could possibly be an untouchable taboo. It should be known that aside from Hu Feiyun, the other 8 kings had all broken through to the heavenly body tier one after another. This was practically an inconceivable miracle. What means did Empress Luan Xing have to be able to see through to one's potential to finally break through to heavenly body tier when they were still in the mountain river tier? Even for a genius like Ling Han, there was a very high chance that he might perish halfway, and could possibly encounter a barrier in cultivation level which he might not be able to break through for eternity. Strange. This was extremely strange. Hu Feiyun was carefree and unworried. She did not at all look like she was leading an army to war, but more like she was going out on a leisurely outing. She had everything in her carriage, a bedroom, kitchen, and even a small garden. Because there was no dispatch of flight god tools, their progress naturally was not all that fast. They had taken a whole 2 months' time to exit the chaotic star's majestic empire, and enter into the territory of the Eastern Rain Nation. In that instant, Ling Han felt the power of the nation that was enshrouding him disappear. He could no longer get any boost from it. Thankfully, only he and the 9th king could draw on the power of the nation of the chaotic star's majestic empire here. Hence, the influence this had on the whole troop was practically zero. Ling Han had been making the most of these days to refine the demonic power source. The fact that Zhao Lun's and Hu Feiyun's cultivation level had soared caused him to feel pressured. This was the immortal realm, and there were all kinds of bizarre means available. He could not be satisfied with the present progression rate of his cultivation. With the help of the Black Tower, his speed of refining had indeed increased considerably. He successfully broke through to the late stage of the medium extreme, and advanced to the peak stage. Correspondingly, his battle prowess increased as well. Unfortunately, when it came to concocting the mysterious azure pill, he was still lacking a bit. On the other hand, he was burning through his wealth madly, and was again about to reach the bottom of the pile. A level 4 divine pill. One failure would mean the waste of materials that amounted to a few thousand true origin stones. Greetings, 9th King. After they entered the Eastern Rain Nation, the higher-ups of the Eastern Rain Nation naturally had to come out to receive them. Hu Feiyun, on the other hand, had seen this scene so often that she did not have any stage fright at all. She talked cheerfully and wittily with the higher-ups of the Eastern Rain Nation, and then took the initiative to ask to join the battle. At first, the higher-ups of the Eastern Rain Nation were not very pleased. Although the chaotic star's majestic empire had sent them a king, this king's abilities were really too weak. She had not even entered the Sun-Moon tier. What use would there be of an elite like this? If she joined the battle, not only would there be no decrease of pressure on the Eastern Rain Nation, they would have to expend a large amount of manpower to protect this king. Who did not know that Empress Luan Xing treated the 9 kings like her own sisters? If anything happened to the 9th king, it was guaranteed that there was no need for the Golden Lion Nation or the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire to make a move, as the Empress would personally eliminate them first. Moreover, the troops that Hu Feiyun brought were all merely in the Mountain River tier as well. But upon further thought, these Mountain River tier cultivators were not simple characters. They were all the future pillars of the empire, and there were also descendants of great and powerful clans among them. If anything happened to them, would the forces behind them refrain from making a move? Then, the Eastern Rain Nation would instantly have the support of countless forces. With that thought, the higher-ups' worries immediately turned into happiness. They quickly escorted this troop to the front line. They wanted nothing more than for a few more of them to die so that the chaotic star's majestic empire would send out a stronger army. A few days later, the army comprised of the students from the Scarlet Heaven Academy came to the banks of a great river. The great armies of the Golden Lion Nation were on the opposite bank, confronting the troops of the Eastern Rain Nation separated by the river. This was a furious river, its roaring current possessing terrifying destructive ability. According to legend, This furious river was created from the swipe of a sword of a supreme elite. It held the supreme sword intent of this elite, which had not completely disappeared even after millions and millions of years had passed. Hence, this river was not something that just anybody could cross. It was necessary to use a ship that could isolate the sword intent as well as have elites of at least Sun-Moon tier stand guard. The Golden Lion Nation was merely a royal empire, and all their elites of the Sun-Moon tier added together only amounted to just over 100, so how could they so easily escort an army across the furious river? This was a natural barrier, preventing the Golden Lion Nation from invading further. However, at the same time, if the Eastern Rain Nation wanted to reclaim their lost territory, it was likewise an endeavor filled with many ordeals. This furious river would turn around to confine them. The Academy troops set up camp here. However, the students and soldiers of the Eastern Rain Nation did not mingle together. Of those who could enroll in the Scarlet Heaven Academy, which one was not a genius? Naturally, they looked down on these soldiers. It should be known that these were only soldiers of a royal empire. There were not even many cultivators of the Mountain River tier, and the majority of them were in the Shattering Void tier, Heaven tier, and Deity Transformation tier. In these few days, each side was unfriendly to the other. There were even times when they almost started fighting with their own people. There was nothing else to be done. The two troops could only be separated. Normally, you didn't come over to my place, and I wouldn't go to yours, either. It was a situation of each staying in their own territory and minding their own business. The Golden Lion Nation did not seem to be in a rush to advance. Every day, they would only use the catapults to shoot over a few balls of fire, causing a small commotion without any intention to cross the river to push their assault. The Eastern Rain Nation, on the other hand, was getting anxious. If this continued, all the territory north of the Furious River would really become the territory of the Golden Lion Nation. In the Immortal Realm, the most valuable resources were territory and population. They would directly affect power of the nation. The general of the Eastern Rain Nation discussed with Hu Feiyun, wanting to begin a counterattack. I agree. The tent flap was pushed open, and in walked a soldierly man who was clad in full armor. His armor was bright silver in color, and there was a handsome face under his helmet. His black locks were also cascading downwards, making him a very warrior-like figure. Zhao Lun. Why did he come? Your Highness, under command of the great General Zhao, I have led a small troop over. We shall obey the commands of the Ninth King henceforth, Zhao Lun said to the Ninth King, half kneeling on the ground. A hint of a cold smirk appeared at the corners of his lips. How could he possibly miss such a wonderful opportunity? It was natural for people to die in battle. In that case, he'd have Ling Han remain in this place forever. Chapter 1058, Sudden Assault. Chapter 1058, Sudden Assault. Although Hu Feiyun didn't like Zhao Lun because of her relationship with Ling Han, she was still a very straightforward person who didn't bear any grudges. She had already forgotten about Zhao Lun long ago. She was a little confused as she looked at him, and asked, "Who are you?" "Pu." Zhao Lun was so infuriated that he almost vomited blood. "It was because of you that I was viciously humiliated by Ling Han, yet you actually forgot who I am?" However, he couldn't take his anger out on Hu Feiyun no matter how enraged he was. He could only reply, "I'm Zhao Lun, Great General Zhao's son." "Oh." Hu Feiyun nodded, and didn't say anything else. Zhao Lun was left in an extremely awkward position. It would be awkward if he stood up, yet it would also be awkward if he remained sitting. All he could do was say, "This subordinate is willing to lead an army into battle and earn glory for your highness." He took the opportunity to stand up while he spoke. The leading general of the Eastern Rain Nation was an elite at the high extreme of the Sun-Moon tier. This cultivation level was 2 minor levels above Zhao Lun's, so there was no need for him to pay heed to Zhao Lun's words. However, Zhao Lun was the only child of Great General Zhao, and his suggestion was also in line with the general's own thoughts. Therefore, the general hurriedly nodded, and said, "Heir Zhao is indeed wise and courageous. It seems like Heir Zhao has inherited the mighty demeanor of Great General Zhao." Zhao Lun was extremely satisfied upon hearing this, as he also liked comparing himself to his father. However, Although he was satisfied, he still modestly said, "Oh, you flatter me, General." Meanwhile, Hu Feiyun didn't have any complaints about Zhao Lun's suggestion. She had no talent in leading an army into battle, and thus she was happy for someone else to take this burden from her. She handed the military leadership to Zhao Lun. He was a 7th-rank military officer anyway, so he naturally had the right to lead an army. Zhao Lun and the general from the Eastern Rain Nation started discussing the details of their assault. He was no pushover. Under the influence of Great General Zhao, he was extremely talented when it came to warfare. However, this was his first genuine battle, after all, and reality was extremely different from theory. Even so, he didn't change his tact and continued to be an armchair strategist. The general from the Eastern Rain Nation didn't mind it at all. He couldn't be happier if more students from the academy died. Only then would the Chaotic Star's majestic empire send a more powerful army. Otherwise, the Eastern Rain Nation would suffer severe losses even if they could force the Golden Lion Nation to retreat. They devised a plan wherein Zhao Lun would lead an army and launch a surprise attack, thereby sending the Golden Lion Nation's encampment into chaos. Afterward, the army from the Eastern Rain Nation would seize the opportunity to cross the river and land the killing blow. After agreeing on this plan, Zhao Lun started to pick members for the assault squad. Quality was more important than quantity, and if there were too many people, the enemies on the opposite end of the river would definitely discover their movements. Only the most powerful students would be chosen, and the size of the assault squad was only around 1,000 or so. Theoretically speaking, Ling Han wasn't powerful enough to be chosen. However, his name surprisingly appeared on the list. It was evident that Zhao Lun was pushing him into danger. Although Zhao Lun's actions were brazen, who could blame him for his decisions? He was fighting for the empire, yet you still wanted to nitpick and complain. After learning of this, Shui Yenyu wanted to visit Hu Feiyun and tell her to revoke Zhao Lun's orders. However, Ling Han shook his head and didn't let her. He wanted to cross the river and have a look at the other side. Initially, he hadn't known much about the Golden Lion Nation. However, he gathered quite a lot of information during the past few days. The Golden Lion Nation wasn't more powerful than the Eastern Rain Nation, with both nations being roughly as strong. Thus, even if the Eastern Rain Nation was taken by surprise, there was no way that they could have lost 14 cities in a row. Unless the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire had a hand in all of this. However, the question was, why? These two small nations acted as a buffer zone for both majestic empires. The reason for their existence outweighed the reason for their destruction. This was also the reason why many smaller nations could survive and exist. However, if the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire was behind all of this, what was their reason? Did they want to trigger an all-out war with the Chaotic Star's majestic empire? Moreover, the army from the Golden Lion Nation had suddenly stopped advancing after reaching the Furious River. Although the obstruction of nature could be a reason, Ling Han felt that the Golden Lion Nation's aim was simply to seize the territories to the north of the Furious River. They were uninterested in crossing the river and capturing more land. Anyhow, the Chaotic Star's majestic empire would never allow the Eastern Rain Nation to be conquered. How could the Golden Lion Nation be unaware of this? Once the Chaotic Star's majestic empire sent an army, they would eventually have to regurgitate all of the land that they had swallowed. That being the case, what was the point of triggering this battle? Unless, perhaps the aim of the Golden Lion Nation was never to seize more land. As for what their true reason was, Ling Han naturally didn't know. He would only be able to find out if he crossed the river to investigate himself. Thus, Ling Han wasn't against becoming a member of the assault squad. After all, he was a soldier right now, so he obviously couldn't go wherever he wanted. However, this would all change if he joined the assault squad. He could pretend that he had gotten separated from the squad, which would allow him to venture deeper into the enemy territory and conduct his investigation. Ling Han had the Black Tower, so he wasn't worried about his own safety. He carefully explained this to Shui Yenyu, and she nodded in agreement, knowing fully well that she wouldn't be able to stop him. Follow the Ninth King closely. That way, you won't face any grave danger, Ling Han urged. He and Shui Yenyu were both members of the army now. In other words, They definitely couldn't act privately. Otherwise, they would risk being punished by the army. Shui Yenyu was slightly surprised. Although Hu Feiyun has a lofty status, her battle prowess isn't all that impressive. Believe me. If you come across any dangers, you mustn't leave the Ninth King's side. The battle prowess that this woman can wield is far beyond your imagination. Ling Han only warned her, but didn't tell her the truth. He had almost been killed by Empress Luan Xing after learning of the secret between her and the Ninth King. Thus, it was better that he didn't reveal the secret to Shui Yenyu lest it brought them more trouble. Shui Yenyu nodded gently, and replied, "Millimeter, wife, why don't we have a kid? Just in case I can't make it back." Ling Han's hands started to become naughty. Shui Yenyu instantly rolled her eyes at him, and scolded, "Don't jinx yourself." She pushed Ling Han aside before turning around and running away. Meanwhile, Zhao Lun was standing atop a highland outside the encampment with his hands clasped behind his back. Having a divine sense as powerful as he did, he could naturally keep an eye on every single corner of the encampment. A cold sneer appeared on his face. "Ling Han, don't think about making it back alive this time." After a night's rest, Zhao Lun and the assault squad set off early in the morning. They would skirt around the main battlefield and navigate their way around the Golden Lion Nation's scouts. They would then cross the Furious River and use the darkness of the night as cover as they launched a surprise attack on the Golden Lion Nation's encampment. Although the darkness of the night didn't affect cultivators, most ordinary people still had a habit of sleeping at night. Thus, surprise attacks were still most effective when launched under the cover of night. The elite assault squad 1,000 men strong set off, and started to cross the Furious River after traveling several hundred kilometers. There was a total of 5 ships, with each being able to carry 20 people at a time. The entire assault squad was ferried across the river after 10 trips. "Heh! Ah!" They all yelled in astonishment after crossing the river. This was because the land on this side of the river emanated a dense air of death. The land was barren, and all of the trees and flowers were wilted and dead. In fact, not even the chirps and buzzes of insects could be heard. Not a single bird could be seen in the air. This piece of land was as dead could be. Zhao, this place is far too eerie. Should we report this to the main camp first?" The student who spoke was a supporter of Zhao Lun, which was why he dared to speak at this moment. Chapter 1059 Unexpected Elites. Chapter 1059 Unexpected Elites. Zhao Lun furrowed his eyebrows. This place being a land of death was completely beyond his expectations. What on earth had happened here? Although he had learned a lot about warfare, such knowledge could merely raise him to the level of an armchair strategist. In terms of genuine battle experience, he had only ever battled as a single entity. Thus, he was completely stupefied by the sudden and unfamiliar sight that lay before him. Zhao, the situation seems off. I think we should play it safe and abandon our original plan," another student suggested. They were also a supporter of the Zhao lineage. Zhao Lun mulled over this suggestion for a moment before shaking his head, and said, "No, continue with the original plan. We're going to attack at night anyway, and the main army will also charge over at that time. There's no need for us to return and report this." This was his first time leading an army, so how could he give up halfway? In any case, his hatred for Ling Han was immense, so how could he let this golden opportunity slip? The assault squad remained where they were as they waited for night to fall. Darkness would be their signal to attack. Time flew by. When the moon rose into the sky, they stealthily crept toward Golden Lion Nation's encampment. They were few, and there was only a single elite at the Sun Moon tier in their ranks. As such, they didn't dream of causing too much damage. Their aim was simply to spread chaos in the Golden Lion Nation's encampment. At that time, the Eastern Rain Nation's army would be able to cross the Furious River with ease. Once they seized control of the Furious River, they would blow the horn that signaled the beginning of their counterattack. If this natural barrier remained as no man's land, it would be easily defendable yet almost impossible to breach for either of the armies. The sky was dark, and the assault squad of 1,000 closed in on the Golden Lion Nation's encampment like silent ghosts. Although it was night, this place was still brightly lit, with gigantic torches lining the perimeter of the encampment. However, the aim of the assault squad was merely to catch the enemy encampment by surprise. Charge! Following Zhao Lun's roar, the assault squad instantly started to launch ferocious attacks on the enemy encampment. Although a squad of 1,000 was small, the minimum cultivation level of its members was the mountain river tier. Thus, they were like ferocious tigers as they surged toward their enemies. They even gave off deafening roars as they charged, intending to instill panic into their enemies. Meanwhile, this was also a signal calling for their allies on the opposite end of the furious river to attack. Sure enough, the sound waves emitted by 1,000 cultivators at the mountain river tier roaring in unison were powerful enough to cause those at the shattering void tier to vomit blood. As if hit by a level 10 hurricane, the tents in the enemy encampment were all smashed to the ground. The Golden Lion Nation's army instantly descended into chaos. Under the tremors caused by the terrifying sound waves, even the commands of the commander couldn't be passed along properly. The enemy army was like a dragon that was missing its head. Humph! Following a cold harumph, a general clad in a golden armor appeared. He was standing atop a flagpole, and his body measured at least 9 meters in height. The parts of his body that remained exposed were surprisingly flowing with bright red lava. Great General Crimson Flames! The Golden Lion Nation's soldiers immediately calmed down. It was as if everything could be solved as long as this person was present. He was Liu Qing, a great general of the Golden Lion Nation. He had the title of Crimson Flame, and he was a god for the Golden Lion Nation's army. He had led armies into 109 battles, yet he had only suffered 7 losses. It could be said that his commanding skills were godly. He was the soul of the army, and as long as he was present, the army would be as sturdy as Mount Taiwan. They are but a bunch of weaklings. What is there to be afraid of? Liu Qing's contemptuous voice boomed through the entire encampment. Weaklings, roared all the soldiers of the Golden Lion Nation in agreement. There wasn't a hint of panic or alarm on their faces anymore. They all raised their weapons and roared loudly as they charged toward the members of the assault squad. Barely any of them were at the mountain river tier, yet their morale was no lower than that of the assault squad. The two sides instantly engaged in battle. Because the students from the Scarlet Heaven Academy had higher cultivation levels, they initially enjoyed a significant advantage over their enemies. However, this advantage gradually disappeared as more and more elites joined the battle. This was a large army, after all, so they could definitely find a few thousand soldiers at the mountain river tier. Ling Han only defended, and didn't do anything extraordinary. This wasn't his battle, nor did he hold any grudges against the Golden Lion Nation. He even more so didn't have any relationship with the Eastern Rain Nation. So, why would he kill other innocent people? However, it was precisely because he didn't do anything extraordinary that he wasn't targeted by powerful enemy elites. Ling Han was under no pressure at all, and continued to mull over why this place was permeated with an air of death as he battled. When a nation set out on a campaign, their aim was always to conquer, not to kill. However, not only were the people in this place all dead, but even the plants, animals, and insects were completely wiped out. Why exactly was this the case? An acute sense of danger suddenly gripped Ling Han's heart. He hurriedly leaped up and jumped toward his left. Pu. The ground where he had just been instantly exploded with a boom. A devastating shock wave soared into the sky and ripped his opponent into pieces. This shock wave had surged out from the ground, and it was definitely not an attack that could have been launched by a cultivator at the mountain river tier. The attack was still incredibly powerful after traveling through the ground, which meant that the attacker was at the Sun Moon tier. If the attacker were an enemy elite, why would they need to launch a surprise attack? The two sides were engaged in battle anyway, so they could have simply charged over to attack him. That being the case, there was only one possibility left. The attacker was Zhao Lun. Ling Han looked toward Zhao Lun, and found that he was currently engaged in a heated battle with Liu Qing. However, Zhao Lun glanced over to meet his gaze, his eyes filled with wicked killing intent. There was no doubt that the attacker was him. Weird. He can fight Liu Qing and reach a stalemate. Ling Han could clearly see the two suns and moons hovering behind Liu Qing's back. This signified that his cultivation level was at the late stage of the medium extreme of the sun-moon tier. Meanwhile, Zhao Lun had only just broken through to the sun-moon tier, which could be seen from the miserably small red sun behind his back. The difference between their cultivation levels was at least 7 stars. However, Zhao Lun was only a 4-star genius, and there was no way he could draw on the power of the nation here. How could he overcome the 3-star difference in battle prowess between him and his opponent? Did he suddenly become a 7-star genius? Wait, no. Ling Han immediately saw divine light radiating from the armor on Zhao Lun's body. It seemed as if it was this armor that was battling, with Zhao Lun merely being a passenger on board. Precious treasure. It's definitely a precious treasure. A mere armor was able to elevate Zhao Lun's battle prowess by 3 stars. This was truly astounding. Zhao Lun couldn't leave any clues, and thus he could only use these kinds of secretive methods to attack Ling Han. Fortunately, Ling Han's reaction was fast enough. Otherwise, it was extremely likely that he would have been severely injured even with his incredibly sturdy physique. Ha ha ha. It's time to exterminate these pieces of trash. There was a hearty laugh, and several hundred elites appeared on the battlefield, all of them bearing suns and moons behind their backs. Gasp! Several hundred sun-moon tier elites. One had to realize that even the Golden Lion Nation only had a total of 100 or so sun-moon tier elites. Now, however, several hundred sun-moon tier elites had suddenly appeared. What did this signify? Ling Han's heart instantly jolted. These are elites from the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire. The events that had transpired here were already extremely uncanny to begin with. Now that elites from the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire had appeared, it was only natural for Ling Han to think that the invasion from the Golden Lion Nation was entirely at the bidding of the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire. However, why had this place been transformed into a land of death? Chapter 1060 Murderous Aura. Chapter 1060 Murderous Aura. Run. The members of the assault squad were all transfixed with shock. Who would have imagined that there would be several hundred sun-moon tier elites in the Golden Lion Nation's army? They were nothing but trash before such an overwhelming power. You think you can still flee? Once the sun-moon tier elites attacked, there was nothing the mountain river tier cultivators could do to resist. They were all suppressed in an instant. Fortunately, the sun-moon tier elites weren't planning to kill them. They merely sealed their cultivation before tossing them aside. Only Zhao Lun was able to break through the enemy's overwhelming encirclement. In fact, the armor on his body even allowed him to fly. Coupled with its powerful defenses, even the large number of sun-moon tier elites couldn't defeat and capture him. Meanwhile, in the chaos of the battle, no one noticed that one other person had also gone missing. Ling Han had naturally entered the Black Tower to hide. Take them away, an elite ordered. No one is allowed to disrupt His Majesty's plans. Understood. The battlefield was instantly cleaned up. At the same time, numerous catapults started to wreak havoc among those from the Eastern Rain Nation's army who hadn't crossed the Furious River yet. At least a quarter of the Eastern Rain Nation's army was swallowed by the Furious River. The remaining soldiers all turned around to flee, not daring to advance any further. Who told them to launch an attack without gathering any intelligence on the Golden Lion Nation's army first? It was only natural that they suffered a heavy defeat. Fortunately, the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire didn't plan on starting an all-out war with the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire. Thus, their reinforcements only hid on the sidelines, and didn't massacre the students from the academy, merely capturing them. It was clear that they had an elaborate scheme. Ling Han silently watched on from the Black Tower. The elite from before had let his mouth slip, saying, "No one is allowed to disrupt His Majesty's plans." Of course, he didn't know that someone was eavesdropping on him from a hidden place, so his words couldn't be counted as a slip. The amount of information conveyed by this sentence was immense. Sure enough, the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire was behind all of this. In fact, They might have directly ordered the Golden Lion Nation to act as they had. Ling Han was extremely curious. What on earth did the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire want? It wasn't long before the surroundings became quiet. Ling Han exited the Black Tower and quietly left the battlefield, heading toward the north. The Eternity Sky Majestic Empire had resolutely seized a large chunk of land, and then used a large army to block access to the Furious River. It was clear that they were scheming something in this place. Ling Han wouldn't be able to gather any more information in this enemy encampment, as it was merely an outpost. He ventured deeper and deeper into the Eastern Rain Nation, yet he became more startled the deeper he went. This was because the surroundings were deathly silent, with all traces of life exterminated. Ling Han summoned his cloud-piercing shuttle and started to carefully search the land as he speedily zipped through it. The cloud-piercing shuttle was incredibly quick, and Ling Han's eye was also especially sharp. Thus, his search was also extremely quick. He had already finished searching a large swathe of land in a very short amount of time. The land before him suddenly became crimson as if it had been burned by a heavenly fire. Wang! The cloud-piercing shuttle suddenly shuddered as if it had been struck. Ling Han hurriedly landed the shuttle and then stowed it away. He then started to carefully inspect and sense his surroundings. This expanse of crimson land radiated an overwhelming murderous aura. What is the Emperor of the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire trying to find here? Ling Han thought to himself. And what on earth are they doing to this place? They even turned this stretch of fertile land into a vast expanse of crimson land. He walked forward slowly, not daring to let his guard down. A feeling of danger suddenly gripped his heart. Bursts of murderous aura surged from the ground before him, fusing together and surprisingly forming a humanoid figure. Boom! The humanoid figure immediately launched an attack at Ling Han, its arm extending without limit as its fist smashed toward Ling Han's face. What on earth is this? Ling Han lashed out with his sword, the fast technique allowing his strikes to arrive first even though he had attacked later. Shua, shua, shua. He performed 7 strikes in an instant and sliced the humanoid figure into 8 segments. The humanoid figure dispersed into a misty form once more, yet it instantly started to condense together again. It was as if Ling Han's sword strikes hadn't dealt it any damage. Interesting, Ling Han muttered. He waved a hand and summoned the Azura Demon Emperor. Oh, great master, little Azura's claws are already thirsting for blood. Please give your command. Whose bottom do you want little Azura to bite today? An obsequious wolf instantly appeared before Ling Han. Holy smokes! It's only been a few months, yet Master has already broken through to the peak stage of the medium extreme. Is he trying to defy the heavens? Who? The humanoid aura charged over, and once again swung its fist at Ling Han. Howl! The Azura Demon Emperor howled as it lunged toward the enemy. His battle prowess was at the late stage of the consummate level, so he was able to easily pin the humanoid aura down. He appeared especially smug as he bit and clawed at the blob of murderous aura. You're so weak, yet you still dare to attack my master. How stupid. Ha! The Azura Demon Emperor cocked his head in surprise. The blob of murderous aura had actually reformed into a humanoid figure again. Is this an undying cockroach? It's a bit like you, Ling Han said. The Azura Demon Emperor was astonished. He was a being who had been born from the demonic chi of primal chaos. Although his battle prowess was nothing to write home about, he was still an extremely special existence in the netherworld. It would be impossible to find another species whose members could become a host in the bodies of all kinds of living beings, dead people, and puppets there. It was because of this unique ability that the Azura Demon Emperor had been sent to the immortal realm to search for the location of the lower realm. Master, this doesn't seem to be a living being, he speculated. Ling Han nodded, and said, the murderous aura here is particularly strong. There's an undying will fluctuating through this land, and humanoid figures like this can be formed wherever the murderous aura is denser. These humanoid figures all possess a violent instinct to attack. The Azura Demon Emperor was stunned, and said, elites like this are far too terrifying. This is merely a shred of his willpower that has leaked out. Ling Han stroked his chin as he continued to suppress the humanoid figure, and said, "So, I also want to find out what on earth the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire is trying to do. Master, it's dangerous to keep going. It's best that we don't venture too deeply." The Azura Demon Emperor was extremely cowardly. "Don't worry. If there are any dangers, you can walk ahead and act as my shield," Ling Han casually replied. "Ah." The Azura Demon Emperor's dog mouth instantly gaped open. His expression was as if he were saying, "Master, you can't screw me over like that." Ling Han had tried all kinds of methods, yet this humanoid aura was impossible to kill even though it was extremely easy to smash apart. One could crush it into hundreds or thousands of pieces, yet it would quickly reform itself again. It was as if it were an undying beast. "Let me try this, then." He unleashed his divine patterns of flames toward the murderous aura. Wang. Ling Han felt as if he heard a wretched wail when the flames blasted over. This wail caused his divine sense to shudder uncomfortably. However, the effects of the divine flames were also extremely obvious, quickly incinerating the humanoid aura into ashes. Ling Han turned to look at the Azura Demon Emperor, and found that his state was even more miserable than himself. The Azura Demon Emperor had been jolted out of the puppet wolf, and his mist-like body was squirming about continuously. The murderous aura's wretched wail was a divine sense attack, yet Ling Han's divine sense had already been tempered to become extremely sturdy by the indestructible Heaven's Scroll. Thus, he had only felt a little discomfort. Meanwhile, the Azura Demon Emperor was genuinely at the medium extreme, so his body had been directly jolted out of the puppet wolf's body. Interesting. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.